Okay, pukul 3.
Okay, kita go live ya. Sekarang kita tak live YouTube.
Ya, go live YouTube dengan tu.
Yep.
Ni macam sorry.
Apa lah Ruby, can start.
Just have 59 people. Yeah.
Tak apa nama.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Ruby, start.
Okay. Hello everybody. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera kepada semua. A very warm welcome to everyone. The guest speaker yang berbahagia Datuk Seri Engineer Dr. Zaini Ujang, the Secretary General of Ministry of Environment and Water, the panelists Encik Suhaimi Kamarazaman, Chief Executive Officer of Pengurusan Air Selangor, Professor Dr. Chan Ngai Weng, President of Water Watch Penang, Dr. Engineer Technology Haji Muhammad Asari Daud, President of MWA, Wan Punita Nook from Water Think Tank as the moderator. We have Encik Muhammad Hairi Basri, our MWA Deputy President, some council members present, and ladies and gentlemen. A special thanks to the MWA institutional member sponsors, namely Premier Water Services and TechCam Group. Thank you for your presence to MWA webinar on RMKe-12, What's in Store for the Water and Environmental Sectors. For your information, the program will run for about 2 hours, starting with the presentation by the guest speaker, followed with a panel discussion by the 3 panelists to be led by the moderator. Participants are welcome to post their questions through the chat box, through the Q&A box available, or may ask their question live during the Q&A session later. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the session, let me welcome MWA's Deputy President to give an opening remarks. Please welcome Encik Muhammad Hairi Basri. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Terima kasih, Ruby.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera keluarga Malaysia semua. So, on behalf of the President of the Malaysian Water Association and also of my fellow council members, so I would like to welcome all members of the Malaysian water industry players to this special webinar on RMKe-12, what in store for water and environmental sector in the 12 Malaysia plan. Welcome to all of you wherever you are, and also as mentioned by Ruby, special thanks to our sponsors, Ken Group, Datuk David Ng, and also Premium Water Services, Mr. Damon Lim, which is also our Honorary Secretary General. Thank you very much for your sponsoring this event. So we are glad this afternoon to have Datuk KSU, Jabar Datuk Seri Engineer Zani Ujang to be with us to share with us the framework of the 12 Malaysia Plan for the water and environmental sector to be implemented between year 2021 and year 2025. We also glad to welcome all the panelists and our moderator for today's webinar that has been introduced by Puan Ruby just now. Ladies and gentlemen, 12 Malaysia Plan for April 2020 to 2025 was tabled by the Prime Minister in the Parliament on 27 September 2021. So the whole document is about 556 pages, which is the thickest so far in the history of Malaysia Water Plan documents. So the main theme in this 12 Malaysia Plan is Malaysia Makmur, Inclusive, Mampan. Detail related to the water sector can be referred to Chapter 9, mempertingkat kemampanan tenaga dan mentransformasi sektor air, daripada muka surat from pages 334 to page 357. So among keywords used are water sector transformation 2040, integrated water resource management that to be accepted by industry stakeholders in this 12 Malaysia Plan, access to treated water, NRW reduction, tariff setting mechanism, groundwater, climate change mitigation, circular economy in the water sector, usage of water efficiency equipment, innovative financing, reduce pollution, and water, energy, and food nexus. These among the key words used in the chapter. I'm sure these keywords will be discussed by the panelists shortly. So the water industry looks forward to smooth implementation of the 12 Malaysia Plan, and in particular, our water and environmental sectors. The COVID-19 pandemic that we all face for the past 2 years provide us with challenges to kickstart our economy in the new norm. At the same time, implementation of various existing projects and new projects have been slowed down due to the pandemic. We hope 12 Malaysia Plan will provide the momentum for water and environmental sectors to contribute to the economic value change and address pertinent issues like tariff and others, to transform the industry forward to reflect the title for Chapter 9 of this 12 Malaysia Plan. Without further ado, I will pass back this webinar to our MC to proceed with the program that we have planned for the day. Thank you very much for all the participation from the members of the Malaysian Water Association and also the industry players. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Encik Muhammad Hairi. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Engineer Dr. Zani Ujang, Secretary General of Ministry of Environment and Water, to proceed with his presentation. Please welcome Datuk Seri. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sejahtera, selamat petang kepada semua. Dengar ya?
Ya, dengar.
Ya, okey.
Dengar clear.
Okey, hari ini ialah hari yang berbahagia bagi saya. Tahun ni saya menyampaikan webinar yang ke-104. Minggu ni 7 kali, minggu lepas 6 kali. Jadi saya rasa saya ni macam professional webinaris, apa whatever you want to call it.
Webinaris.
Terlalu banyak sangat berwebinar. Dan I'm very glad that I'm able to be with all water players to talk about this very important subject. I hope you can download the document on 12 Malaysian Plan, which is available on the net. You can have the shorter version, such as this, only a couple of pages. I would like to mention, actually, there are two dedicated chapters related to environment and water. One is an advancing green growth for sustainability and resilience, where you have enhancing conservation of water resources, conserving natural resources, resilient against climate change and disasters. So in the future, as mentioned by Prime Minister on 11th of December during my CAC, my Climate Change Action Council, we have already agreed to inculcate climate change factors in our water design, water structure designs. Say, for example, we want to build dams or barrages, or weir, climate change factor will be included. And it has been discussed at various levels at the ministry. We want to codify that. As far as JPS is concerned, I think they have already completed the framework study done by Nahrim. And then we have enhancing energy sustainability and transforming the water sector, that is dedicated on transforming the water sector, empowering people, strengthening governance at all levels. I will discuss about that later. But please spend time to read it. And this is very thick document. I agree with Encik Khairi, but very easy to read because it has a lot of graphics so that enable you to skip and then to understand better, I think. Okay, what we are worrying about at the moment. World in general are worrying about coronavirus and climate change, education, immigration control, inflation, and whatnot. And on top of coronavirus, Malaysia is topping the list, the chart. Therefore, it is so easy to convince Malaysians to get vaccinated. Compared to, say, for the United States, we have civil war in order to get them vaccinated. In France, for example, I was told by my friends, in France, it is not about the demonstration against tax policy or whatever. Now it's between pro and the other groups, anti-vax, on the street at the moment. But 90% of Malaysians are already vaccinated within 6 months. We started in April and we have completed everyone, almost everyone now. Yeah. So this is something magical about Malaysia. You can see that if we are, you take my words, if we are interested, we are directed, we will be the best in the world. You name it, whatever. Yeah, I can show you a lot of other numbers like this where Malaysians, when they get excited, they are really powered and they are much better than Japan, you name it, United Kingdom or whatever. Yeah. But comes to climate change, Malaysia is the least. We are the top from the bottom. Why? Because we are not being excited, we are not being informed, we are not being discussed, or we don't know what's happening. Compared to, say, for example, countries from the lower part for coronavirus became the highest now on climate change. You can see that we are even worse than South Africa and Peru when we talk about climate change. Why climate change is important? Because the future water development, energy conservation will be based on the parameter of climate change. You can read the statement by Prime Minister. It is made available to everyone after Mesyuarat MCAC, my CAC, yeah? Climate Change Action Council. And this is against environment. Again, Malaysia is from the bottom, number 4. Therefore, when I visited many rivers, yesterday we were in Sungai Air Hitam and Sungai Ampang, you can see people easily disposing our river ecosystem as if it is a dumping site. So it has a lot to do with us. So this is known to everyone. COVID-19 is just an event. The structure, the models behind it, the framework behind it is a climate change. Therefore, we have to discuss about planetary health. I don't have time to discuss about planetary health here because we are discussing about 12 nation plan, but that is critical. So we are trying to ensure that development of the future will be climate resilient in nature. Then this is very important. Before we understand that, in the past, when Ministry of Water is dedicated to water services, we found that a lot of water resources cannot be taken into consideration in a holistic manner. Why? It is from different ministry, different people altogether. But now we are in the same ministry, so easier for us to put everyone in the basket. People from water resources, agricultural water, domestic water. You just imagine agricultural water require water with nutrients, but people from water supply try to get rid of nutrients, especially ammonia, because it will deteriorate our operating system and operation in water treatment plant. People in sewage and industrial effluent are trying to reduce phosphorus and nitrogen as much, whereas we need agricultural water require that so much. So within water sector, we are divided by our sentimental value on discipline of studies in university. It's okay university because universities are developing via super specialization, whereas in practice, in ministry, in a profession like water industry, we are growing because we are integrated. We can give a solution. We can deliver a complete package. So that's the difference between academia and the reality outside university. Okay, and then we have a lot of other components now. We have sustainable development, we have green growth, we have net zero greenhouse emission and whatnot. So in the past, this is the linear process. But now we have to think about how best sewage with high nutrients can be used in agricultural water. And whereas this is not allowable at the moment, whatever you treat, you must treat to the completion. And you cannot transfer that unless you treat them fully. So you can ask Ais Selangor macam mana dia discuss dengan IWK. So they have different framework altogether. Say for example, receiving water from IWK, we purify them, going back to industrial water. And we found that in Wasia, it was not covered. It was not mentioned. So we have to amend Wasia because it was not mentioned. Air pulih guna, reclaimed water is not derived, it's not defined dalam Wasia. You just imagine a simple thing that every logical person will say that it can be used, but in Wasia it was not defined. So I give you an example how delicate it is because we were when we did. I mean, I'm part of the group to be blamed because we were thinking in linear form. So when we want to have sustainable development framework in place, and then we realize, oh, come on, we cannot think like this. We have to rethink. Ini tanya nanti Cik Suhaimi, he knows very well. But from regulatory point of view, tanya SPAN, dia kata tak ada orang jaga. Contohnya tentang, I give you another example, residue from water treatment plant. It was not defined anywhere in AKAS, Akta Kualiti Alam Sekeliling. Kalaulah you break the pattern, break the complete cycle of the monitoring of the scheduled waste. Contoh, dan dalam Wasia it was not defined as well. So things like this need to be ironed out. I'm very lucky because I can understand this very easily. You just imagine kalaulah orang yang jadi QSU tu tak tahu benda ni. You can explain kat dia dan sebagainya. So I think it will take longer time for us to move forward. Ya, dalam keadaan saya faham dan keadaan saya bagi direction pun lambat sebab nak pergi ke parlimen, parlimen tak bersidang, something like that. Yeah, it should be done earlier this year in March. What else you want to put industrial water into water resources? Ini yang cerita nak berlaku di sungai apa ni? Sungai mana ni? Sungai Kelang. Kita nak jadikan rasau. Kan ada discharges from industry apa semua tu, and we put back to the receiving water and want to make it as water resources, rasau of river storage. So this is the scenario that we have to think, and I think this is what we call iceberg model. We can see event, patterns, structures, and mental model. This is in line with system thinking. System thinking talking about not event and trends, but also system structures, mental models. And as an engineer, system thinking ni developed at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So, and engineers are very good in looking at things in this framework. When we talk about design thinking, we have to do it. This is where we can design the system. And you can see that design the system require motivation. Ini yang cakap ni engineer tau. Bukan ni cakap ni School of Liberal Arts ataupun School of Humanities. We are talking about engineering group. At MIT, they are talking about motivation, belief and whatnot. Sebab kita tak akan dapat keluar daripada thinking yang lama, proses yang lama, kalaulah kita tidak ada motivation yang tinggi. So this is very important for us to share. And before I start, I just want to introduce, because climate change will be a very major thing in water sector in the near future. Whatever we do, climate change is a factor. Yeah, in the past probably a factor, but very small factor. But going forward will be very big factor. I know that climate change is not is common to water resources people, but from water services probably not that common. It started with IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in 1988, and then they start with first assessment report in 1990. AR is assessment report, and the establishment of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1990. Then we had Kyoto Protocol in 1995. We have third assessment report on adaptation, fourth on 2% limit. So if we go beyond 2% of climate change or global warming, there will be irreversible trend. So we have to be lower than 2%. And then, of course, IPCC won a Nobel Prize. And then in 2014, this is very important, prior to Paris Agreement, IPCC published assessment report number 5. And it says a lot. Apa yang kita buat sekarang ni, assessment kita yang ada dalam climate change factor for water infrastructure tu based on assessment report number 5. Yeah. Number 4 and number 5 lah. Yeah. And then kita ada 2018 special report on 15. 15 tu apa maknanya 15? 1.5. Bukan 50 tu 1.5. Jadi maknanya kita tak pergi kepada 2 degree C, but we go to 1.5 degree Celsius. Supaya jangan terlepas ke 2 for precaution. And then recently they published 2021 assessment report number 6. Assessment report number 6 ni ada 3. Dia akan publish lagi tahun depan dalam bulan Mac. Yang baru keluar pada 26 bulan 8 yang itu ialah assessment report group number 1 on physical science basis. Dan kita pun adalah wakil daripada Malaysia. We are reviewers, about 78,000 people reviewing that, and then including Malaysia. So we had an opportunity to read the report partly. So apa yang disebut dalam report tu, yang paling penting sekali, kita boleh tahu report tu bila dia gunakan perkataan SSP, Shared Socio-Economic Pathway. 1 to number 1 iaitu 1.9 degree Celsius. Yeah, of then certain GHG. 4.5 tu degree Celsius punya increment lah. Beza dengan ni report yang macam ni. Jadi kalau lah orang tunjuk report yang macam ni, mana this the latest report we have to refer to. Dan apa yang penting ialah it confirms that anthropogenic activities contributed 1.1% degree Celsius in terms of global warming. Yeah, that is the confirmation. Previously dalam AR5 assessment report 5 dia macam ni. Dia gunakan perkataan RCP, dia tak gunakan SSP. Dia gunakan RCP, representative concentration pathway. Ya, jadi this is old report. Jadi dalam buku saya banyak gunakan report ni lah. Dan report ni 2014 punya report. Kalau yang baru dia akan gunakan SSP. Sungai Selangor Plan 1. Tentulah. Kalau tanya Cik Suhaimi, Sungai Selangor Plan
Phase 1, Phase 1.
Phase 1, Phase 2. Tapi SSP sini ialah Shared Socio-Economic Pathway. Ya? Jadi saya saja nak buat joke lah bagi siapa yang tak mengantuk. Okay, we know the impact. Water sector will be the hardest according to the report. Satu, because of flooding. Yang kedua, because of coastal erosion. Yang ketiga, because of drying season going to be longer. And flooding will be more severe. Yang paling penting, yang nyata sekali kepada sektor pembekalan air, yang berbanding dengan sektor-sektor lain, tidak seteruk sektor air. Jadi indirectly what I'm saying in the report, sebab tu kita ada combination report kita ni dengan dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-12 ini dengan bidang alam sekitar. So this is, as we know, the temperature will be increased by 1.6 degrees Celsius pada tahun 2050 di Semenanjung. Di Sabah, rainfall will be increased by 11% increase rainfall. You can see that in Sarawak will be the highest rainfall, more than 4,000 mm a year going to be in Sarawak. Jadi in the past when we talk about flooding, it's only limited to Kelantan dan Terengganu, but in the near future we can see a lot more from Sabah and Sarawak. Yeah. Tengok peninsula, di segi sea level rise up to 210, tapi di Sabah 620 mm rise. Yeah. So this is based on our submission, National Communication 3 and Biennial Update Report yang kita hantar pada tahun 2018. Yang in terms of water stress, Malaysia is not part. Malaysia is considered low to medium compared to our Sumatra or Sulawesi or the Java. Yeah, we are blessed with that. It means that we are facing problem with heavier rains, heavier rainfall, more flooding to take place. It means that the strategy must be water retention. We have to have a lot of Rasau equivalent infrastructure in the future, not only to tap the opportunity of free water from rainfall, but also to reduce flooding risk. Okay, this is what we have seen in the past. The debris flow will be common, and some of our dams will be re-examined. Therefore, recently, the cabinet has approved, I think 2 weeks ago, yeah, not this week, last week. Cabinet has approved emergency budget for checking on dams and say, for example, dams, Klang Gate was built in 1952. It's about 70 years now. Yeah, the engineering life of any structure, water structure, is maximum of 72 years. Jadi we have to look into that very seriously. And since this is water resources, so that is the responsibility of federal government to discuss with state what can we do. So the total package in the future, I think, to replace old dams, bridges, bridges as well. Bridges can cause flooding, as occurred in Yan. Dua bridges tu menyebabkan banjir di kawasan tersebut. Okay. Ada satu lagi yang tertinggal kat sini ya. Ada 7 statement yang penting tu saya tertinggal. Satu ialah NDC, Nationally Determined Contribution Malaysia, reduction of 45% carbon intensity based on GDP 2030 and compared to 2005 level, net zero GHG emission. So please remember that we don't use carbon emission, we use GHG emission because we want to establish a new bill called Climate Change Bill. Dalam tu kita refer kepada GHG, kita tak gunakan perkataan carbon sebab this is more succinct, I think, referring to 7 substances. The earliest by 2050, yeah, the words is the earliest. It could be 2051, it could be 2050, it could be 2060. Singapore, say for example, mentioned they are going to have net zero GHG emission in the second half of the century. Indonesia 2030, 2060. Establishment of GHG inventory center. This is very important because many people claim that they are reducing the increasing the GHG offsetting, say for example. So we need a center to verify that numbers because in the future we are going to treat these numbers. Yeah, government fleets using non-ICE, non-internal combustion engines means that no fossil fuel. By 2030, buses, cars, lorries, trucks, and whatnot. So this is very important for us to understand the movement we are now going at. And development of domestic emission trading. If water treatment plant system can reduce our GHG emission, we can have some trading facility. I'm not yet able to go detail on that. We are still working with Bursa Malaysia, how the trading can take place. But assuming your water catchment is to be offsetting capability of some kind, so we can trade them. We can get money just by preserving our water catchment. Yeah. National guidance on international voluntary carbon market. Yang satu lagi saya tertinggal ialah the factor on climate change in engineering design of water infrastructure. Okay, this is old policy, but the principle is common differentiated responsibility with different capabilities, and this is very important. Ini yang kita sebutkan, saya selalu sebutkan benda ni. This is updated submission on 30th of July to reduce carbon emission, carbon intensity by 45%. This is unconditional. Previously, we said conditional upon receiving assistance from developed nations. Yeah, but kita kata tak perlu. Kita dapat itu, kita akan tambah lebih pada 45%. We 45% our own doing. By doing that, the possibility of our country to be the destination of carbon trading. Dia kata Malaysia has a very good system, they are doing themselves, but they can improve. And then by 20, say for example, 2025 mungkin orang akan datang, okay, can you do it 60% because we cannot do it in our country? Malaysia can do it because we have the system, we have shown all the numbers correct. Yeah, GHG itu daripada carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide, kita pergi kepada yang lain-lain. Okay. The first 3 ni daripada industri yang paling banyak selain daripada industri penjanaan tenaga ialah dalam industri sewerage, ya, dalam wastewater, carbon dioxide. When we said that the efficiency of treatment plant is better for wastewater treatment plant, sewage or industrial effluent, it means that they generate more carbon dioxide, more nitrous oxide, and the sludge will produce a lot of methane, ya, dalam sektor kita. So this is very important. Trichlorofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbon, sulfur hexafluoride, and nitrogen trifluoride. So key adaptation kita ialah addressing flood, coastal protection, water and food security, and public health. Ini 4 yang utama lah. Adalah benda lain tapi tak sepenting itu. Dan saya akan pergi secara detail lah benda ni. This is our reporting through Sustainable Development Solution Networks. Every year they produce SDG index. We are ranked number 65 at the moment. You can see that in water sector, we are improving, but not great. Yeah, so this is something that we have to look at. Life below water is almost stagnant, and the rest. So let's look what they have in mind about life below water. Mean area that is protected in marine sites, ocean health index, fish caught from overexploited and collapse, fish caught by trawling or dredging. Kalau kita tengok yang lain contohnya, responsible consumption, municipal waste, solid waste, electronic waste, is nitrogen emission. Yeah, this is partly nitrogen emission daripada sewage treatment plant. Begitu juga yang lain-lain, contohnya CO2 emission from fossil fuel combustion and cement production, CO2 emission embodied in imports. Kalau kita import pun, kita dapat carbon dioxide yang mereka yang dihantar itu. Jadi Paris Agreement ni quite comprehensive and quite difficult to conduct kalau kita tak bekerjasama. This is our new, ada sikit perubahan. Dulu 28, sekarang ni jadi 27, sekarang ni jadi 30 lah. Jadi siapa ada masa boleh tengok. Dan perkara yang penting dalam water sector kita ialah water efficiency. Kataan water efficiency ni jarang orang guna, selalunya energy efficiency. We specifically put non-revenue water sebagai water efficiency, begitu juga domestic water consumption. This is the target we have. With TSM as mentioned by Suhaimi tadi, we'll be able to do it. I think KPI minister untuk 100 hari ialah TSM. So sama-sama kita doakan. Jadi jangan pula negeri mana tak setuju. Kita tak nak macam tu. This is for the industry. Forget about political differences. This is for the good, for the benefit of everyone. Saya dah minta banyak pihak yang kawan-kawan saya nakal-nakal kat mana-mana, kata please support. Ya, kalau tidak nanti kita tak boleh move forward, tak boleh tukar pipe, tak boleh nak improve services. Malulah negeri kita yang hebat-hebat tetapi air masih lagi ada masalah. Treated water reserve margin kita nak naikkan kepada 20%, 13% itu kadang-kadang dia tidak memberi gambaran sebenar lah, ya. Dan kita juga ada financial sustainability, water supply for operators kita nak pastikan yang financially they are very strong. Hopefully by 2030 10 of them out of 14 itu they can be on their own and then less dependence on subsidy by government. Mungkin yang 4 itu masih ada isu lagi lah. Contohnya macam negeri seperti di Sabah Sarawak itu masih lagi di bawah jabatan kerajaan. Kita kena bantu macam mana mereka boleh berdikari. Sewerage, we want to ensure that 85% at the moment OPEX recovery, we want to make it 100% by 2030. Urban connected sewerage, this is great. Antara kehebatan Malaysia berbanding dengan negeri lain, pada tahun 2020 ialah 78%. Pada tahun 2021 ni, KPI saya 80%. For information, 80% is better than America. America is only 76%. Japan is 80%. Understandable because of earthquake and they have Jokasho system. In Japan, you will be given chance whether you want to connect or you change, you use off-grid. Off-grid in Japan is called Jokasho, and you have to get a contractor to do it. They will come every three months, do servicing in your house and whatnot. It's not like us. It's not like septic tank. Jokasho is as good as refrigerator or washing machine or whatever at home, where from time to time we need people to come to service. That is what Japanese is doing. Therefore, in the rural area, there is no direct discharge of grey water to the drainage system. Grey water is treated together with black water. I don't want to use the word silage because silage is difficult for you to connect the dots. I use grey water, black water, and yellow water. Yellow is urine. In Scandinavian and Germany, urine is separated. They take urine because urine has the highest component of phosphorus. It means that it can be turned into fertilizer very easily. compared to, say, for example, you mix them with minyak, with grease, with apa semua, and then you want to take them out. It's very difficult. So if you go to places in Germany, in particular in Sweden, in Denmark, they want your grey water, they want your yellow water. Jadi dia boleh datang hari-hari tu ambil, dia asingkan dekat apa tempat yang buang air kecil tu kan. Dia orang collect benda tu because they kill the bacteria and then they concentrate and then they put in a proper package dia boleh jual as high concentrated organic fertilizer. That's how what they do it, and it is already separated. Dalam tu tak ada contaminants yang lain, tak ada sabun, tak ada minyak masak, tak ada apa lagi, tak ada lagi you punya ubat-ubat yang kita selalu gunakan di rumah untuk basuh simen, basuh lantai apa semua tak ada. It's purely phosphorus rich fertilizer. So if people ask us what is the greatest achievement of Malaysian water, greatest achievement is urban connected sewerage services. Ya, sebab di Indonesia 2%. Indonesia. Di Thailand lebih kurang dalam 3 ke 4%. You can study the report. Report ni ada dalam pelbagai dokumen. Salah satu daripada ni SDG report tadi lah. Siapa yang rajin, saya tak tahu lah, orang mungkin rajin tengok benda lain. Tapi saya kadang-kadang saya compare kita dengan neighboring country. Sebab tu saya dapat data tu. Ada satu buku yang akan kita terbitkan akhir bulan 11 nanti, air dan pembentungan. Dan dalam tu ada semua data-data ni. Dan kita kaji juga OECD countries. Di Eropah hampir keseluruhan connected. Di UK 100% connected. Sekarang Sweden semakin sikit sebab negeri besar kan. Bukan lagi 100%, mungkin 95%. Tapi negeri seperti Amerika, di kawasan urban mereka hanya 76% saja connected. Malaysia 80%. So kita aims to get 95% sebab kapasiti kita sekarang ni, contohnya macam loji pantai, loji langat, kumbahan langat ni, ada 20% pockets of people not connected. Termasuk kampung di mana kita buat loji tu. Di langat ni. Jadi kita kena cari cara macam mana. Sunggala contohnya Port Dickson, 50% tak connected. Itu juga di Langkawi, loji yang kita buat tu, kawasan yang sekitar tu termasuk hotel tak connected. So this need to be ironed out, and then I have asked SPAN to look into implementation proper. National Water Innovation, government fund saving, economic generation, job opportunity is all there. Alternative water resources. So what I'm saying, apa yang kita ada dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-12 tu sebenarnya adalah sebahagian daripada ni if you stop at 2025. Ni gambar ni 2020, 2025, 2030 Jadi you can see more components. Kelainan dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-11 ni ialah ke-12 ni ialah diambil sampai 2025 tu lah. And then some of the numbers is not defined. Jadi sebahagian adalah operational targets of related agencies if you look into them separately. Tapi you can tengok yang sebelah kiri ni banyak sektor air, termasuk saya fikir almost semua major factors kita ada, termasuk clean rivers. Sekarang ni kita ada clean rivers tu 300 lebih lah. Clean rivers. Kita ada banyak sungai di Malaysia. Kita ada banyak sungai di Malaysia. Jadi cara nak clean rivers tu selain daripada kita buat polisi kadang-kadang yang tak menjadi, kita ajaklah orang turun ke sungai. Jadi kalau tuan-tuan biasa tengok weekend, saya akan turun ke sungai. Kita get people feel the dirty water or the beauty of the clean water, as what Haji Asari depan rumah dia. Dia duduk situ berbelas tahun tak terfikir depan rumah dia tu ada sungai yang cantik. Ya, apabila kita buat program macam ni baru orang cari di mana sungai saya. What can I do with my river? Then kita start dengan event seperti banner denai dan sebagainya. Barulah orang menghargai sungai kita, dan pada masa yang sama baru kita, ya Profesor Chan, barulah orang kita tahu kenapa sungai kita tercemar. Sebenarnya tercemar bukan kerana kilang. Disebabkan dapur yuk. Disebabkan oleh kedai kita makan nasi lemak selalu tu, yang terus membuang grey water straight to the river, and then we can talk about grey water. Sebab extension of the facilities. I'm so sorry, I don't like these words, but sometimes I want to hit people a bit. Yeah, what is the I would say this. What is the opposite words for sustainability? Ya, dalam hal ni saya tak maksud orang yang tak sustainable ni stupid. I think I want to use the word S and good sounding. Jadi macam ni, kalaulah kita ada masalah, kita ada water demand yang tinggi dan supply yang juga tinggi. Kalaulah kita ambil option itu, kita akan banner lebih banyak dams. Kita akan lebih banyak tap. Satu dam tu sekarang ni kurang-kurangnya 1 bilion. Satu tap tu you tanya, yang baru kita nak buat ni di Rasau, 1.2 bilion. Yang kita nak buat dalam perancangan kita, nak buat lagi di Linggi dan di Macang. Dan banyak tempat lah. Semua bilion-bilion lah, tak ada yang kecil-kecil. And then we have to build water treatment plants because bila dah ada taps, dah ada dams kat situ, kena buat water treatment plant. Contohnya kita sekarang ni tengah dalam proses untuk memulakan projek di taps jernih Melaka. Lepas tap jernih tu kena buat water treatment plant kat situ. Water treatment plant probably another 200 million, 300 million. Yeah, and more DE projects. It looks good because a lot of activities, contractors will like it. Yeah, but government would not like it so much because it costs a lot of public money. Tetapi kalaulah kita boleh kurangkan demand dan supply itu semakin tinggi, itu yang kita nak jadikan priority nombor 1, iaitu caranya ialah consumption 180. We all out cari cara macam mana. Sama ada gadget yang kita gunakan untuk kawasan perumahan baru, itu kawasan perumahan baru, kawasan perumahan lama macam mana. We do a lot of recycling work, itu yang dibuat oleh IWK dengan Air Selangor. We do a lot of water efficiency activities, NRW dan sebagainya lah. Yang banyak lagi water efficiency, saya pernah bagi kuliah webinar tentang water efficiency. Priority kedua ialah low supply but high demand. If you still need high demand because of rapid development in Klang Valley, say for example, kita go on priority 2. Priority 2 apa? Kita work on NRW. We go on higher reserve margins so that with higher reserve margins there is no water congestion, water gangguan air, bekalan air. We have more water reservoirs. Ya, ataupun kita pergi low demand and low supply. Ini macam tempat Kelantan, Pahang, mungkin sebahagian daripada kawasan-kawasan di sekitar Kedah dan sebagainya. We priority 3 ni, tarif kita concentratekan kepada DE. Kita go on a lot of cultural work to enhance people on consumption and whatnot and circular economy. So dengan cara macam ni, saya fikir kita akan dapat idea di mana kita. Contohnya di high water demand areas and then high supply. And then we go to priority 4. Kalau tak boleh buat apa, kita go to priority 4. Tapi kalau boleh, kita go to priority 1. Cara nak pergi priority 1 itu demand kita kurangkan. Demand cara pengurangannya ialah go to the people and go to the outlets of the sewerage services where you can recycle 20%. Contohnya yang kita bincang dengan Menteri Besar Johor baru-baru ni, dan kita bersetuju untuk selatan Johor itu, selain daripada kita buat taps, kita juga akan buat recycling di 2 tempat lah, satu di Johor baru dan satu lagi di Pasir Gudang. Sebab kita ada 140 lebih loji rawatan kumbahan yang lebih daripada 1 juta population equivalent. Ya, so itu kita boleh dapat, at least kita boleh dapat 200 MLD air untuk disalurkan kepada sektor industri. So this is what we are doing. Ini framework kepada, ini cerita di belakang tabir pemikiran, di belakang Rancang Malaysia ke-12 ni lah. I'm so sorry to use this word lah, saya jarang guna perkataan ni. Kalaulah kita pergi kepada priority 1 tu, nampak kita ni tak cerdik lah. Ya, kita spend unnecessarily, sedangkan kita boleh pergi kepada priority 1. So instead of priority 4, kita pergi priority 1. Instead of priority 2, kita pergi ke priority 3. Yeah? So this is just reducing demand. And then automatically tempat-tempat sekarang ni masalahnya tempat seperti di Kedah, dia punya supply tu tinggi dan demandnya sedikit, macam Perlis. Supply-nya tinggi sebab lebih pada 50% NRW. Jadi kita pergi more sustainable. Kita cari kuadran yang sesuai bagaimana kita nak. Dan kuadran itu ada keutamaannya. Yang mana kita nak utamakan. Ya, jadi I go a bit detail on sektor air ni. Kalau kita tengok tema 3, melonjakkan kemampanan pengurusan sumber air, bab 8 itu mempercepatkan pertumbuhan ekonomi yang saya sebutkan tadi. Ada perkataan rendah karbon. Jadi saya nak supaya kalau boleh, sektor air ini juga menyumbang kepada reducing GHG. Dan bila kita ada carbon trading nanti, kita boleh trade off reduction yang kita ada. Ya, banyak cara nanti kita boleh bincang satu persatu. Mempertingkatkan daya tahan terhadap perubahan iklim dan bencana. Keutamaan B ialah mengurus sumber asli dengan cekap dan melindungi aset semula jadi. Aset semula jadi ini termasuklah natural dams. Macam kat Jerai itu, natural dam telah pecah. Jadi kita kena buat sabu, structure ataupun dam ataupun yang sebagaimana banyak di Jepun. Sabu itu adalah national apa tu? Dalam bahasa Inggeris mungkin creek ataupun small dams connected to each other. Dia bukan satu dam yang besar tu, dia hanya pertahankan aliran air sungai itu. Satu tempat yang biasa saya pergi di Jepun tu kan kadang ada 10 tingkat dam tu. Sabu tu. Dan kita dah luluskan 2 sabu nak buat di Jerai. Sebab apa? Sebab dia punya aset semula jadi yang ada tu, aset natural dam tu dah pecah ketika berlaku hujan yang sangat lebat 178 mm dalam masa 5 jam. Di dalam sektor air pula, perkataan yang kita nak gunakan transformasi sektor air. Kita bukan nak membiayai sektor air. We want to transform to become bankable. So in the future, until 2040, transformasi sektor air ni sampai 2040. By 2030 tu kita dah boleh jadi penyedia perkhidmatan kepada banyak negara kalau kita ada. Jadi kita tak boleh datang hanya kata okey kami boleh buat ini, tak boleh, tak jalan. Yang boleh kita buat ialah okey, we come with a package. Itu sebabnya tadi slide saya yang awal-awal tu saya sebutkan tentang package tu. We come to your country, katalah satu bandar seperti bandar katalah Melaka, tempat lain, dan macam mana kita the whole bandar tu kita boleh transform dari segi water sectornya. So this can be done easily kalau kita tahu nak connect the dots. Yang penting nombor 1 ialah memperkasa rakyat. Memperkasa tu ialah empowered rakyat so that they make correct decision. Gunakan air secara berhemah, membantu kita mengawal pencemaran, membayar bil yang ditetapkan dan sebagainya. Kita nak supaya orang rasa contohnya saya cerita macam ni lah ya. Ada banyak duta Malaysia yang berada di Malaysia ni yang jumpa saya, dia kata I'm so sorry I cannot contribute to water sector in the country. Dia kata what's the problem? Dia kata I don't pay my water bills. It's paid by my government. But normally when I was in tempat-tempat lain lah, dia kata my water bill is about 50 to 100 USD per month. But in Malaysia I pay only 10 to 15 USD per month. Tempat yang dia pernah pergi tu lebih miskin daripada Malaysia kadang-kadang tu. Ya, so dia kata tak betul lah, you kena correct lah, water bills kita ni tak betul. Sebab itulah macam-macam isu ada kaitan dengan air di Malaysia. Yang kedua ialah memperteguhkan tadbir urus pada semua peringkat, menambah baik keupayaan membuat keputusan berasaskan data dan membangunkan infrastruktur mampan dan teknologi yang berkesan kos yang cost efektif. Kita tengok satu persatu tentang rendah karbon ni. Saya keep on saying rendah karbon supaya kalau boleh nanti jurutera yang mereka bentuk kita punya kemudahan infrastruktur kita, contoh water treatment plant, sewage treatment plant, you have to utilize potential yang kita ada. Contohnya differential in pressure. Contohnya ialah biogas yang kita hasilkan melalui sewage sludge. That should be used to energize the sewage treatment plant. Ya. Mempertingkatkan daya tahan terhadap perubahan iklim dan bencana. Begitu juga dengan yang lain-lain, melindungi aset semula jadi, kemudian memperteguhkan tabik urus integrated water resources management, integrated river basin management. Kita juga menangani pencemaran, kita akan buat loji rawatan kumbahan bersepadu di kawasan industri baru. Maknanya kita akan menghasilkan loji-loji kita akan datang nanti akan tak lagi ditempatkan di pinggir sungai. Tetapi kita akan letakkan berhampiran dengan kawasan-kawasan industri dan kita akan cuba untuk recycle water itulah, reclaim water, and then we go detail. Akan datang kita akan buat total maximum daily load kepada semua. Jadi maknanya nak tak nak, loji-loji yang kita banner nanti mestilah loji-loji yang I won't say zero discharge, but I would say that it is very punishable lah to get to the MDL requirement. Kadang-kadang tu kawasan tu loading dia dah tinggi. Tujuan loji rawatan kumbahan kita tu ialah dilution, bukannya lagi to add to pollution loading. Ya, maknanya tak boleh lagi dah 20 mg per liter of BOD, tak boleh. Mungkin kita terpaksa design 5 mg per liter BOD. Kalau macam tu, baik kita recycle terus, baik kita reclaim, and then kita send back to the industry. So that's the framework going to be in the future. Semua public funding yang kita akan luluskan mengarah kepada tu. Mungkin mahal sikit, tetapi in the long run it is much cheaper. Kita tak ada isu tentang polluting river, downstream will be much better. My worry is only this, kita mungkin tak cukup air dalam sungai kalau kita tak discharge daripada loji rawatan kumbahan. Ya. Kita juga ada sebutkan tentang DSK, Denai Sungai Kebangsaan di situ. Peranannya saya fikir sangat penting untuk membolehkan masyarakat bersama membantu kita. Ya. Transformation of water sector, penglibatan awam dalam pengurusan sektor air, dan kita akan menggerakkan program pemeliharaan yang digerakkan oleh komuniti. Contohnya, ini sebagai contoh ya, Friends of Rivers, ataupun apa-apa saja yang berkaitan dengan usaha untuk pastikan yang sungai kita tak tercemar. Yang kedua, memperkukuh tadbir urus pada semua peringkat. Ini termasuklah semakkan semula perundangan oleh kerajaan persekutuan dan kerajaan negeri, mengurangkan pencemaran, memperkukuhkan perundangan sedia ada. Kita telah siapkan, saya fikir, untuk pindaan kepada hukuman itu akan siap dalam tahun ni. Dari segi rang undang-undang mungkin akan kita kemukakan ke Parlimen secepat mungkin, sebab saya akan berjumpa dengan Peguam Negara pada hari Jumaat minggu depan. Nak bincang dua lah, wasiat dan Akta Kualiti Alam Sekeliling. Ya. Jadi insya-Allah kita boleh cepatkan. Menambah baik keupayaan membuat keputusan berasaskan data. Kita akan memperkukuhkan Institut Penyelidikan Air Nahrim, perluasan NAWAPS. Kita juga akan bangunkan infrastruktur mampan dengan teknologi yang berkesan kos. Ini termasuklah meningkatkan penggunaan air bawah tanah. Ini pun 2 hari lepas saya berada di Kelantan, kita mungkin ada kelemahan sikit dari segi persiapan untuk menggunakan air bawah tanah ni. Recharging structure kita tak buat. Dan kita juga mungkin a bit simplistic in defining air bawah tanah ni. Sebab air bawah tanah ni tak semudah yang kita fikirkan lah. Dia banyak chemical reaction di bawah tu. Kolam takungan air banjir sebagai tempat penyimpanan air mentah. Jadi akan datang nanti lebih banyak tabs akan kita banner. Dan sebelum ni takungan banjir ni purely untuk takungan banjir. Tapi akan datang ni kita akan ada connectivity. Kita nak buat sebagaimana di Belanda dan Jepun, di mana takungan air ini membolehkan bukan saja sea water intrusion tak berlaku, tapi pada masa yang sama dia akan ada recharge capability untuk gunakan air bawah tanah. Ya. Dari segi sasaran terpilih sumber air, kajian kawasan pesisir pantai dan marin dipelihara melalui pewartaan dan kaedah-kaedah lain berkesan bagi pemeliharaan berlandaskan kawasan. Kawasan terestrial dan air daratan dipelihara melalui pewartaan dan kaedah-kaedah lain yang berkesan. Pelaksanaan pelan pengurusan lembangan sungai bersepadu Itu juga dengan penubuhan pusat bersepadu bagi data dan R&D CNI berkaitan air. Kita ada 3 fasa dari segi 4 fasa dari segi transformasi sektor air. Fasa pertama mempergiatkan penerima gunaan integrated water resource management. Ini sangat penting sebab di banyak negara sekarang ni, di banyak negara lain, 70% daripada sumber air mereka digunakan untuk pertanian. Dan pertanian adalah sektor yang paling tidak efisien dari segi penggunaan air. Jadi bagaimana kita boleh bantu supaya masalah tak berlaku di tempat seperti Kelantan, di Kedah dan tempat-tempat lain yang banyak pertanian. Ya. Pembangunan teknologi tempatan yang standing dengan standard antarabangsa. Jadi pada tahun 2030 tu kita dah ada bukan sahaja teknologi tetapi the whole package. Kalau kita tengok China, dia datang ke Afrika bukan bawa teknologi, dia bawa the whole package, funding, teknologi, construction, maintenance for 25 years, apa lagi, semua, the whole package. Dan dia tolong carikan duit, bayarkan. Jadi maknanya dari segi penjualan air pada itu tu dibayar oleh penduduk tempatan, bayar kepada funders lah. The total package. Jadi kerajaan hanya memilih package mana yang mereka perlukan dan kita perlu datang dengan macam tu. Kita tak perlu datang hanya dengan saya boleh buat banner loji rawatan air, tidak. Ini yang kita biasa lihatlah. Macam syarikat seperti Petronas, bila keluar menggerudi di sesuatu tempat mencari minyak, dia membina sebuah bandar baru di kawasan tersebut disebabkan oleh aktiviti yang ada di situ. Proses perbandaran itu dari segi pembinaan jana kuasa elektrik, air, jalan raya, you name it, everything. Itu daripada program tersebut. Jadi banyak negara sekarang apabila nak membuat satu pembangunan, mereka nakkan yang integrated package ni. Mencapai ekonomi dalam bidang tersebut dan menjadi hub kepada industri air sekurang-kurangnya serantau. Kita lebih palatable compared to Singapore sebab Singapore tu tidak ada masalah dari segi air yang banyak. Contohnya negeri yang kecil, sistem pemerintahan 1 tier, kita ada 3 tier pemerintahan kerajaan dan banyak lagi lah. Mereka tidak ada isu tentang contohnya tentang grid air sebab negeri mereka kecil, kita negeri besar nak buat grid air untuk Lembah Kelang mungkin memerlukan 20 bilion, 30 bilion untuk sambung pipe di tengah bandar ya, dan buat reservoir air terawat di tengah-tengah bandar supaya tekanan tinggi dan sebagainya. Tapi perkara tersebut insyaAllah dah termasuk grid air juga as part of our activities. Saya tak nak cerita panjang, mungkin lebih baik bertanya saya. Ya, ini perkara yang kita akan buat nanti dari segi funding. Menjelang tahun 2040, kita mencangkakan peruntukan yang diperlukan daripada industri air ini kira-kira 380 bilion. Ya, 20 years moving forward. Ini termasuklah replacement of many old infrastructures, termasuk juga apa lagi, dam, kita ada 100 dam. Pagi tadi saya ada aktiviti dengan MyCoal, Malaysia Big Dams Association lah something ya, dan perkara-perkara tersebut dibincangkan. Jadi cara sekarang ni kita dapat berbelanja disebabkan oleh DE. It's too much depending on DE. Dari water resources, water resources pekerjaan persekutuan, sewerage services, expenditure kita selepas dibina oleh developer, semua DE. Water related risk, flood mitigation, river protection, coastal dan sebagainya, semua DE. Kecuali water supply services sahaja ada komponen loan and grant daripada capital market. Moving forward, kita ada beberapa option lah dalam rancangan Keynote 12. Kita galakkan land swap. Land swap tu yang paling mudah untuk sewerage services sebab the moment we kita bangunkan satu loji besar, kita mungkin ada loji-loji kecil yang bertaburan mungkin 100, 200 Ya, jadi satu. Kita juga nak gunakan wakaf air, regulated private finance initiative, public private partnership, performance based contract, facility license for sewerage, dan untuk seterusnya kita juga akan explore minimum exposure policy financial institution, cash wakaf sukuk, mungkin juga kita akan buat dedicated bank for water. So ini semua akan menjana 10% kepada capex rancangan Malaysia ke-12 nanti. AWF is alternative water financing. Jadi maknanya kita mulakan dengan 2012, assuming satu rancangan Malaysia tu kita ada budget lebih kurang dalam 60 bilion. 10% is about 6 billion. Budget yang kita kendalikan sekarang di sektor air di kementerian di bawah Dr. Ching is about 46 billion running projects at the moment. Itu tak termasuk projek yang dibina sendiri oleh pemaju, dibina sendiri oleh kerajaan negeri dan sebagainya, di bawah syarikat-syarikat air tak termasuk, kecuali yang related kepada purely DE dan yang tersenarai dalam loan grant capital market and up. So ini perkara yang kita nak selesaikan. Non-revenue water ni sampai sekarang ni kita mencari cara terbaik lah untuk melaksanakannya. Peruntukan kita ada 1.371 bilion ya, yang telah diperuntukkan, dan pendekatan satu kita telah berbelanja hampir keseluruhannya apabila migrasi berlaku, dan program NRW pendekatan 2 ni sekarang ni hanya Selangor sahaja yang menggunakan. Ya, negeri lain tak datang untuk ini. Jadi kalaulah tak datang secara tak langsung, kita tak bolehlah berbelanja ni. Jadi apabila saya dah berjumpa dengan pegawai-pegawai daripada EPU, tanya tentang peruntukan untuk non-revenue water ni, dia kata habiskan duit tu dulu. Duit ada 1 bilion lebih lagi. Jadi please, water operators from Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, Johor dan lain-lain ni, come forward on pendekatan NRW yang kedua. Selangor dah buat claim yang pertama ke yang kedua, saya lupa. Kita dah luluskan sebahagian lah, sebab sebahagian tu kita tak luluskan sebab tak berkaitan dengan NRW. Ya, dan yang lain-lain. Jadi saya berhenti kat situ dulu, kalau ada persoalan kita akan bincang. Saya dah ambil masa panjang ni. Sekian, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Datuk Sri. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have the panel discussion shortly. Let me briefly introduce our moderator, Puan Punita Nook from Water Think Tank. She provides consultancy services in environmental sector, specifically focusing on water, sewerage and sanitation to the governments, among others. While we are listening to the discussion shortly, I would encourage participants to post their questions and thoughts in the Q&A box for our moderator to address them to the respective. Without much delay, the floor is yours, Puan Punita. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Jump straight into the discussion. Before I ask question to the panel, Datuk Sri, if you don't mind, you actually mentioned that alternative water financing is 10% of the RMKe-12 capex. So any idea what is the RM12 capex for water sector?
Oh, that based on, okay, the way we do it is long-term planning. It is not one budget. It is based on rolling plan 1, rolling plan 2. We are now in rolling plan 3 already. The coming budget is rolling plan 3 of Rancangan Malaysia ke-12. Walaupun Rancangan Malaysia ke-12 tu baru bermula dari segi documentation, ya, tapi sekarang ni rolling plan 2 tu is done already, is already budgeted. The next budget will be rolling plan 3. Something like that, and every rolling plan we have to bid for it lah. Therefore we have to have a clear policy what we want to do and what is the outcome. At the same time, it must be crystal clear in terms of output and outcome there.
Okay, thank you, Datuk Sri. So with that, I would like to introduce our first Suami Kamaruzzaman, Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Pengurusan Air Selangor. He's actually leading an water operator that is serving supply to 8.5 million population Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya as well as Selangor, with a total consumer account numbers of 2.5 million. So welcome, Cik Suhaimi. Listening to this conversation that Datuk Sri have actually mapped out, very visionary, far-sighted, talking about the need to achieve concerns. I think the first slide was very interesting. Concerns that people have. I mean, people don't really think about water is a problem or sewerage is a problem, environment is a problem. They have a list of concern. Seems like now industry need to match how does their sector or businesses can address that concern. So really looking at what being shared and what Datuk Zaini said, it could be a need-based rolling plan, right? What would water operator would want to have or need right now?
Thank you, Punita, for your question. Firstly, I want to comment a little bit on Datuk Sri's presentation. Datuk Sri touched a lot on climate change and environment. Before I address the needs of the water operators, maybe I touch a little bit on the very visionary view and targets that the government has set in terms of addressing climate change. And we at Air Selangor has already started that journey. We have in this year published a 2020 sustainability report. We measured our carbon emission intensity. I note that Datuk Sri mentioned GHG now. I will have to learn up that and see whether that is something that we can adopt in future sustainability report. So climate change is here, climate change is real. We can see it and we have to start addressing it through possible longer droughts. Therefore, how do we tap the rather depleting water resources and making sure that water can tap it in sufficient quantities with huge demand coming on board, especially in Klang Valley. After industry is recovering from COVID, they'll be reinvesting. So I'm very happy to hear that Rasau was mentioned a few times by Dr. Sri, and I'm glad the government understands the importance of tapping this resource from a rather polluted river to make sure they don't go to the sea, which is a rather waste, and it is being trapped for the use of the people in Klang Valley in the future. So that is my first comment with regards to climate change and how do we try to maximize whatever available water that we have so that it doesn't go to waste. Number two, I think the effort on pollution or reducing the incidences of pollution, I think is real and becoming ever challenging in Klang Valley, especially in 2020 with multiple incidences. We are anxious to hear the changes to the Act and the changes to the law, and as well as the enforcement activities that can be heightened to ensure the environmental polluters do pay their price, and the laws made it easier for prosecution to be made against certain parties. So there are many others in there. I don't want to take too much of time. Just on the last one on the recycling of water, I'm happy that Datuk Sri also mentioned that we have worked with Indah Water. Obviously, at this moment, the amount of recycled water it's supplied to industry is only about 4 to 5 million liters. We will work together with Indah Water to see how we can be part of the journey for the government to meet its target for a more robust and more an increased use of reclaimed water for the purpose of industrial use. That's all, Punita. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhaimi. So I do have some follow-up questions on something you said, but we'll come to that. And second, would like to introduce Engineer Haji Muhammad Asari. He's the president for Persatuan Air Malaysia, representing literally the entire industry players for this particular sector. And he is also Ahli Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Awam Negara. Welcome, Dr. Asari.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Asari, what I was really thinking is, knowing that MWA actually being the voice for industry players, a whole list of them, I'm very sure right now everyone is waiting, with bated breath, wondering whether what Datuk Sri have presented respond to the expectations they have. So really, from your representation angle, does the Rancangan Malaysia ke-12 answers the questions that your industry player had?
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Punita, for the question. First of all, I would like to thank Datuk Sri Zaini for the presentation, and of course to the other panel members who have been here, including the moderators, to share our views and insights about the industry's interests as far as the RMKe-12 is concerned. So coming back to the question of whether this has actually I would say a good news for the industry. Of course, I think there have been some, what we call that, modification or adjustment or rationalization to the past planning of the restructuring. I think this is really very important because after something like 10 years plus, 15 years probably, we enter into the new era of restructuring and what you call that, light asset. So I think there are things that we learn along the way, and probably with Datuk Sri's presentation just now, I can feel that there are some adjustment that need to be done. And of course, one of the things that we really want to see the changes, and I think hopefully within the 100 days, is actually on the LM problems that I think that Sri has specifically mentioned just now. There will be another good news for the industry. And the tariff review, that's going to be also one of the KPI of the ministry, I think will hopefully will bring the good news to the industry, not only the operators, but those who are actually working with the operators. For example, the consultant, the contractors, the suppliers, all are actually depending on the fate of water operators. I think this is one of the essential things that was raised by Datuk Sri, and I think is important for the industry. And one thing that is very peculiar about this what we call that RMKe-12 is the empowerment. They call it public empowerment. I think that was mentioned just now. That is actually something that the industry would like to see, because we have players, and I think our players has different roles. Some of them are actually freelancers. So freelancers also need to participate and get involved. And I think with all these adjustment and also some what I call that flexibility given in the implementation of the RMKe-12, I think these are all good news to the industry. And then I think it's also important that we also look into how the industry could actually build up their capacity in line with, I think there was said about the 4-phase transformation. I think the industry need to go through that level, of transformation. I think at the end of the day, probably by 2030, we should be able to actually sell ourselves, our technology, or our way how we do things. I think we have gone through a very unique experience of transformation in the past 15 years or so. So now we are going into another phase. I think what we have learned and acquired during that 15 years has to be actually properly adjusted, and it should be open to changes and not just trying to be very rigid with all the, with the enactments and anything. So we have to be a bit more flexible. We mustn't say that, oh, I cannot change all this. These things are all casted in stone. So I think we have to have that some flexibility. We have learned over time that there are things that we cannot do or we can do, and that things we should put more emphasis. And of course, I think we mentioned about just now about the reducing the demand, individual demand from 200 something to 180, something like that. So I think that needs some form of probably adjustment, some form of motivation to people, how they can actually use less water. I'm thinking probably the tariff has to be something adjusted so that if you use less, you pay less, something like that. So they get the motivation to change. So we need to put together what we call that what people thought, what people think would be good for them, that will be benefiting to the industry. I think coming back to your question, probably this RMKe-12 actually has put some of the elements that actually we are looking at. We need to have efficient, not only efficient water, I think that was mentioned, but efficient water, we need an efficient system. We need to have an efficient system. So with that, that's why I think, for example, the non-revenue water has to come with not only doing parts that are easy, but part that will be impactful, that is considered as effective and efficient in terms of implementation. I think that is my brief response to your question, Ms. Punita.
Thank you, Dr. Asari. There's multiple points that I would like to raise in the later part of this panel discussion, but I would like to now introduce Professor Dr. Chan. He's an academician from University of Science Malaysia, but more than that, he's president for Water Watch Penang, someone that people look up to. So really, Professor Chan, knowing that you are the voice for the demand, which is consumer, and for the silence, which is environment, how do you find that the RMKe-12 plan that Dr. Zaini had just, Dato' Sri Zaini had just shared?
Thank you very much, Punita, and a very good afternoon to everyone. We're sacrificing their, family time during the weekend to come and attend this very important forum. So I'm very happy to be here to be able to share some of my views, not particularly just coming from the academic sector or from the MGO, but as a Malaysian, as someone who's really very concerned about our water resources. The Rancangan Malaysia 12 actually is very refreshing compared to the past, because for the first time I've been reading all this Malaysia plan. For the very first time, actually, the plans actually admit in the past we had problems. For instance, the plan has admitted that water governance was not as good as it was in the 11 Malaysia plan. So this kind of thing is actually, government is showing they are upfront and they tell us, okay, we didn't succeed here. There are some shortcomings, so this is what we need to do. So I find that this is a good thing, to come forward and say, okay, we didn't do, we didn't get an A, but we may have just, fail or just pass. So what do we need to do in the future? So if I look at the plan, sustainability is coming to the forefront. Whereas in the past, of course, economy was right in front. Economy is still there. I mean, there are, more than 12 chapters or what, and then most of them are, on the economy, social, and so on. But the water has one whole chapter, which is very good. And after listening to Dato' Sri, I find that it is even more refreshing to know that we have now integrated energy together with the water sector. Climate change has come to the forefront. And I'm very, very pleased to hear that everything that is now going to be passed or new project or whatnot will have to pass the climate change. Will have to come into, the inputs of climate change will have to be put in there. So we are thinking about what we can do to climate change, not only in the water sector, but also in all other things in the Malaysia Development Plan. So this is very good. And one more thing I want to stress on is the circular economy, which has been stressed highly in the Rancangan Malaysia 12. We cannot go on business as usual now, produce one good and then, come out with a lot of waste. Waste is no longer something that we can live with, because there's just too much waste. Our landfills are full, and the NGOs are fighting. They are not in favor of incinerator. So there is no way we can continue to generate the amount of waste that we have. Our rivers will really suffer, if you have this kind of waste. They all end up in the rivers and all sort of places. So circular economy is good. And okay, my second point is about dedicating one whole chapter to water, and IWRM has come to the forefront. But my real concern is IWRM is not really something very new. It has been talked about for the past maybe 50 years or so. So now only we want to adopt how to adopt. I mean, federal government is putting forward, but state governments, if they don't adopt, so what can we do? I think this is one thing we really need to think very carefully what we can do with the state government if you don't adopt. I was a little bit disappointed because Dr. Sri didn't mention, didn't talk about transboundary waters. I know this is very political.
Virtual water.
Yeah, transboundary water. We have more than 10 rivers in the country which are transboundary, which means they cut across different states, some 2 states, some even 3 states. And you know what I'm getting at now, because there are some states fighting over the water. If you look at the Sungai Muda itself, Kedah and Penang has been, quarreling over the water, and until today it has not been resolved. I think if we want to achieve all the KPIs that we want in the water sector, if we don't tackle this transboundary issue, we will not be able to achieve all the KPIs. For sure, because even if you look at just the northern area in Peninsular Malaysia, the 3 states of Kedah, Perlis, and Penang, if you don't tackle this transboundary water, you don't resolve it, these 3 states will not achieve all the KPIs that we want to achieve. So I think it's very important that, we need to look at transboundary water, particularly in CASA has already mentioned that we need to set up a river basin authority and so on and so forth. I think we need to pursue to that effect to implement. Otherwise, I think many of our things will not be achieved. The KPI will just be delayed for a long time. Like Muda is just one river. There are many others. So I think I'll stop here for this moment. There are other things maybe later on the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Chan. So, Dato Sri, I think if this question is not asked to you, probably we can't move on because Prof. Chan have raised it, and you have mentioned it also part of the presentation just now, as well as some question and answers by members. If you can briefly share with us what is happening in terms of a mechanism that being put in place to address the discord between not just federal and state, but also with the local governments. That's number one. Number two is between interagencies. Even though now agencies are parked under one ministry, but every agency have a very specific role. So how does, or what is the approach that you have in mind to actually harmonize all this discord? Because eventually, if we want to look in terms of outcome, carbon footprint, greenhouse gas emissions and whatnot, that will be achieved through harmonization of these gaps.
Okay, thank you for the question. Frankly speaking, this is much related to not purely policy, but I think the way we handle things ourselves. We need more people with open-minded in terms of working together. In the past and now, I think people still working under certain silo because they don't want to disturb others. So for example, kalau ada isu dengan kerajaan negeri, pegawai persekutuan ni dia kata tak nak nanti apa-apa hal susah. Bukan dia tak nak go further, Professor Chan. Apa-apa berlaku nanti, ayo banyak susah lah, nanti deteriorate the system. That is the perception. Tapi kita adakan pertemuan dari masa ke semasa. Sebab itulah saya fikir kita kena berjumpa secara lebih santai, lebih friendly. Mungkin denai sungai mendamaikan kita, menyebabkan kita faham tentang komitmen setiap pihak. Saya ke Pulau Pinang baru-baru ni dengan Prof. Chan. Saya dapati it's not easy. State also cannot. It's difficult to manage people at large. Yang dah ada kat situ. Tiba-tiba dia kata tak boleh buat macam ni. Semua grey water kena masuk ke dalam public sewer. So the question is macam mana nak masuk public sewer? Tanya Encik Suhaimi, dia dulu kerja CEO IWK. Orang akan setuju kalau dia tak bayar apa-apa. Tapi kalau lah you instruct them, you have to put in public civil and the cost is 10,000 each premise, and then you are in trouble. Ya, benda-benda macam tu yang perlu kita hadapi, dan saya fikir semua orang nak pastikan yang okay, the principle is this. No one suka ada sungai tercemar di kawasan mereka. Tak ada orang yang kata okay, saya tak kisah sungai kalau tercemar pun tak apa. Tak ada orang yang berani cakap macam tu ataupun yang tak buat macam tu. Semua orang kata kita nak pastikan sungai kita, sumber air kita bersih. Persoalannya macam mana nak bersih? So you have to knock doors, start talking to people, blah blah blah. So nak meredakan hati manusia ni, so sebab saya tunjuk gambar design thinking tadi. It start with motivation. Kalau siapa yang tak nampak gambar saya tunjukkan balik gambar ni supaya you know my line of thinking. Sebab tu saya tak cerita dengan orang cerita tentang yang benda besar-besar ni. Saya cerita dengan benda yang very simple. Haji Asari, kita pergi macam mana nak get people involved. Meanings and motivation. Bagi dia tahu bahawa kalaulah kita dapat connect ke public sewer, grey water is to be handled proper and with little investment, so your area can be booming. Your rivers can be used as recreational attraction center. Your property market will be increased double, something like that. Start with that. Kita tak boleh start dengan rasional. Masalah kita ni, kita berfikir secara rasional dan kita lupa tentang emosi manusia. Kita lupa tentang belief dan yang lain-lain. Dan daripada situ barulah kita buat behavior change. Barulah ada action. Barulah ada tindakan. Dan tindakan itu apa? Ialah saya jaga sungai saya, I'm willing to spend 10,000 ringgit. No issue. Something like that. Ya, kita jangan start dengan okay, you tak buat, you jaga. Saya fikir di peringkat pihak berkuasa tempatan pun dia menghadapi masalah untuk sama-sama mengatasi masalah, menyelesaikan masalah ni. Semalam kita di Ampang. Nanti Prof Chan ni datang sekali lah 24 hari bulan kita buat gotong royong di Sungai Ampang. Sungai Ampang ni beautiful river. Nampak dia punya pasir lebih cantik daripada Sungai You. Tapi sampah bertaburan. Orang pergi dekat jambatan tu buang dia punya bakul, dia punya plastik hitam, dia punya apa-apa sajalah yang dia nak buang. Sebab dia tak ada motivation, dia tak ada meaning bagi dia kalau sungai ni bersih apa. Apa maksud sungai bersih bagi saya? So we have to go back to that, and this is design thinking yang kita nak sebelum kita pergi kepada system thinking. Kalau system thinking tu nanti kita masih agak rigid lagi walaupun orang kata system thinking is needed. Dan yang kita tak nak ialah event based thinking. Event based thinking bila pencemaran berlaku, kita pun carilah sumber-sumber pencemaran, kita punish that people. That is event based. Kita tak nak macam tu. Kita nak deep getting people involved, and bila kita sebut tentang empowering people tu maknanya people themselves willing to do it. No pressure from government. Contohnya, bila kita nak naikkan harga ataupun kita nak review balik tarif bekat air contohnya, dia kata well it should be sebab ini terlampau murah, dan kita pun bagi reason. Kalau terlampau murah nanti syarikat air tak boleh nak memperbaiki pipe air dan kemungkinan bocor di sana sini itu memberi gangguan, itu lebih mahal daripada tambahan RM10 atau RM5 sebulan. Contohnya kalau naik air lah. Saya tak kata naik air ya, ada kalau kita tengok sektor tenaga, saya jadi KSU jaga tenaga selama 2 tahun. Mereka yang RM40 ke bawah bil elektriknya dan berada di B40 free is paid by the system. Is paid by the upper part of the tariff structure. So maknanya orang yang miskin free. I'm not saying orang yang miskin tu didera, free. Jadi yang kita takut sekarang ni orang miskin ni. Ya, pendapatan 3,000 ke bawah ni takut nanti tambahan daripada RM20 bayar RM25 itu menyebabkan mereka susah dan sebagainya. In reality, it can be free if we do it properly. Ya, jangan takut.
Dato' Sri, I want to write on what you said about the design thinking, right? Jika saya tengok rancangan Malaysia ke-12, there are like really impressive high targets has been set. Tapi at the same time, it seems like we are doing pretty well. Contohnya macam akses kepada bekalan air is 95%, nak dibawa ke 98%. Connected services dah sampai 78%, nak bawa ke 95%. Luar bandar nak achieve 98% liputan, right? These are amazing, impressive numbers, but we are pretty much there. Jadi kalau saya tengok secara spesifik, contohnya dalam kes air, Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, Sabah dan Sarawak saja yang belum capai the target. The rest dah capai. So in that sense, don't you think design thinking must be applied? Things must be designed fit for purpose. Maksudnya kena go to the community.
Ya. You mesti ingat ya, kita dapat benda tu dengan highly subsidized structure. Sebab saya katakan tadi, kita nak sektor air ni bankable. Sebab tu kita kena transform sektor air ni. Sektor tenaga was not bankable 20 years ago. Or 15 years ago, it was not bankable. Jadi siapa yang dapat projek, katalah kita nak buka satu projek pembinaan sebuah jana kuasa, nak perlukan duit 5 bilion. Nak dapat duit 5 bilion 15 years ago is very difficult. But now, kalau you dapat satu jana kuasa elektrik, katalah nak buat apa saja, insyaAllah will be able to be received by 20 or 30 banks, not only in the country but outside the country. Sebab it is a cost recovery system. Sedangkan dalam sektor air tak ada. You tanya suami, macam mana nak dapat 1 bilion? Yeah, you will raise bond lah, tapi maknanya it's not as easy as sektor tenaga. Ya, sektor tenaga ni is able to generate up to 100 billion a year. The circulating of fund every year. Dan sektor air ni 20 billion je. Ya, 20 billion tu sebahagian besar daripada ni lah subsidi. Kita dapat capai ke tahap itu because of subsidized system. Saya tak kata subsidized system itu tak baik. Dalam keadaan sekarang ni mungkin kita masih perlukan, tetapi moving forward, kalau subsidi ni nanti selepas daripada siap, siapa nak maintain? Contohnya. Kemudian tu kita tak masukkan dalam mana-mana bayaran. Patah balik kepada kerajaan. Bukan kerajaan tidak bertanggungjawab, kerajaan nak buat jalan raya, nak buat sekolah, nak buat universiti, nak bagi beasiswa, nak naikkan gaji pekerja dan sebagainya. So many things that government has to spend on. Jadi it must be bankable. The keywords is bankable.
So if I want to ride on this, right, I have a question for Dr. Asari and Prof. Tan. Because yes, number one, Datuk Sri mentioned many times, it must be bankable. And also when we look at slide yang Datuk Sri tentang mengenai the approach that government KASA want to take untuk bawa dana capital masuk kepada sektor ni is pretty much independent or reliant on private sector. I wonder whether, number one, Dr. Asari, that the industry players, are they ready to shift from doing huge, big projects, highly technical, kepada nature-based solutions, yang di mana, kepada Professor Chan, communities are ready, especially rural areas, to take on, operate and maintain. Something that is more relevant, more palatable for them, sebab then, the dana daripada kerajaan can be more focused on immediate needs. So urban areas, like it or not, in Malaysia, 77% communities are living in urban areas. So I think the key solution is increasing that gap or identifying aspect, especially in rural areas. Are industry ready, Dr. Asari? If you can start off. Dr. Asari, can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
So terima kasih Ms. Ponita. Thank you for your question pertaining to the readiness of the industry for the changes. I think this industry has been all this while quite agile, and we have been trying a lot of things. So I think what we are strengthening in this RMKe-12 is actually public participation and empowerment. So I think, and not everything will be done in that manner. There are things that has to be done the conventional way. I think that goes without saying, you see. So I think this is just a way that the government is assessing past practices and trying to do what they think at this time is going to work. And as Datuk Sri mentioned, what he has done with the Friends of Rivers shows that public participation and empowerment has a certain level of success and would probably be sustainable. So I think it is not one solution for all, but there are things that has to be reassessed and you consider, okay, this is going to be public, this is going to be small enterprises, this is going to be micro enterprises, this is going to be done by a bit more large contracts, whatever. So there is flexibility in this business. Everybody will have the shares, and we are given a little bit of freedom to assess what is the best way things could be done. I think operators like Islango, they know better how I think how this could be achieved, because I've seen some of their what you call that innovative steps in implementing the NRW, because I think that we haven't heard from them what they have done, but since there are some information that I got it through SPAN, for example, there are things that are new things that they tried and works. So we must give that flexibility to operators and not just giving, oh, this must be done that way. So that doesn't open for innovations, and probably people will just follow you, but you might not succeed. So I think now the government is trying to be more flexible, empowering, and also breaking down into micro, and then small and medium enterprises to participate in development. I think that's my first part of the answer.
Thank you, Dr. Asari. I mean, I like what you say. I mean, multiple times what you're sharing is reducing unnecessary regulatory burden. So it's literally like outcome. To allow the players to move around. But I would like now, Dr. Chan, if you can share, especially because my biggest concern is it is that last 2%, 3%, 4% yang akan jadi sangat expensive. And if you're bringing urban solution kepada rural area and expecting it, they have to pay for it, I think it's probably not the right approach. We do need community participation. Do you find with your engagement in community, people are shifting that thought processes? This is something that they want to inherit and work with.
Thank you very much for that question, Purita. Further to what Engineer Muhammad Asari has said, I mean, now the Malaysian public is no longer like our grandfather and even our parents. They are educated now. And most of them are actually, they are concerned, very concerned about environment, about rivers, about, anything that affects them, affect the community. So they also want to play a role. So the only problem is, I think so far, I mean, at this point of time, Malaysia, we haven't come up to that level whereby government is relinquishing the power and empowering the community. Yes, there are some areas that government will empower them, no problem. But there are also areas that government is clamping down. So, we have to be, very flexible in what we do. So, but the good news is under the Rancangan Malaysia 12, stakeholder engagement has been given a very big push. Yeah. I think it's one big chapter talking about, empowering the stakeholders and so on and so forth. And government needs, to work together with them and so on and so forth. But the thing is, NGOs and communities have limited resources. You don't expect them to do big projects and, come out, dig into their own pocket. That's what we are doing now. You ask Dato Sri, he goes to collect sampah from the river. You think the money is from CASA. The money is not from CASA. All the things are coming back from the pocket of all the people who are taking part. And this is where it's sustainable. If you depend on government for money, maybe one shot we get it. The second round you might not get it because it's rolling, Dato Sri. Rolling 1, rolling 2, rolling 3. Come to rolling 2, maybe it's not there anymore. But if it comes from the community, I think there's a way that they can think, they will try to find, ways and means of how to get whatever they want, and they make sure it runs at the barest minimum cost. And the most important thing, I think Cesari would, say with me, is that the commitment, the level of commitment, no money can buy. I tell you, for NGOs, there's no amount of money you can buy the kind of commitment. When NGOs and the people are committed to something, they will do it. They will do it at from their own money, from their time, from their own resources, and so on and so forth. So I think for the Rancangan Malaysia 12, until now, there is no Malaysia plan that has proposed any environmental fund or water fund that NGOs can apply to, So I think it's maybe about time there is a small fund, to provide some seed money, to get the ball rolling, and then people will come on board.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chan. Because of one thing is NGO participation, another one is community. I just give an example. Some of the countries that I work with, they put up the system that are small and super simple, and the jobs are given to marginalized communities like transgender and hardcore poor. And the amount that the local government have to pay is really, really low. So I was thinking something like that. Those solutions fit for purpose, tidak membebankan water operator dan tidak membebankan kerajaan, other than the first cost. So these are the things probably now we have to look at, because bila saya tengok Rancangan Malaysia ke-12, I really love the theme actually. Makmur, prosperity, inclusive, of course it's inclusive, and ketiga is mampan. So I really feel like probably we have to think from a totally different view how we can leverage on this. I want to bring this question to Encik Suhaimi just now.
Boleh saya tambah tak? Prof Chan jawapan tadi. Ya.
Yes.
Okey, dalam sektor air sekarang ni dari segi bekalan air dan pembentungan, kita pecahkan kepada dua, grid and off grid sistem. Jadi yang sebelum ni off grid ni macam terbiar lah, I would say. Di Jepun, you will be given a choice. You nak grid or off grid? Grid macam ni, off grid macam ni. Bukannya off grid tu you tak ada sistem. You kena develop your own system. And caranya ialah contracted by, say for example, 20 contractors ada, they will serve you. You have to comply. Kalau lah off grid, you are responsible for the discharges. Kalau lah grid system, you don't have to worry about it. You just pay the sewerage services. That's it. Done. And according to my friends yang ada juga di biasanya di Tsukuba, di Kyoto, di outskirt of Tokyo, mereka yang memilih untuk buat off grid tu disebabkan oleh satu simple saja, rumah dia dah buat, kemudian tu dia punya area untuk buat grid system tu tak susah, dia kena pecahkan dapur dia ke dan sebagainya, so dia fikir-fikir susah lah. Sebab the off-grid system yang ada sekarang ni yang macam toilet, dry toilet yang dibuat oleh Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation tu, is a dry toilet, kecil saja. Sebesar, the whole system is sebesar washing machine. Dan sekarang ni mereka bagi percuma. Bill Gates invested about 400 million USD. Dia bagi percuma tengok berapa lama tahan dan sebagainya. And you just Google benda tu. And this is the system we want people to choose. If you want to choose for off-grid, you buat sendiri, tapi pastikan yang itu toilet as well as your grey water. And then we solve the issue. Semalam masa kita pergi ke Sungai Ampang semalam, kita boleh tengok orang rumah-rumah besar. Ya, sebab dia off-grid, dia punya discharges straight masuk ke dalam sungai. Itu yang menyebabkan sungai itu tercemar. Ya, jadi kita akan bagi option kepada itu. Begitu juga dengan off-grid untuk sistem bekalan air luar bandar. Sebab tu kita ada wakaf air. Wakaf air ni small money, 50,000 each. Dan orang kita tolak gaji, macam kat kementerian kami tolak gaji, lebih kata 100 orang tolak gaji. Tolak gaji bulanan tau. Ya, tak banyak lah, bukan tolak 10,000, 50,000. Kita tolak RM100, RM200. Dan ramai juga orang yang bagi sumbangan. Kita ada lebih kurang 3 juta sekarang ni, ringgit Malaysia. Dan bila ada masyarakat yang tak masuk dalam sistem kita ni, kita akan gunakan off-grid system. Jadi kita nak make it official that we are going for off-grid. Contohnya. Sebab dulu apa yang kita buat, kita akan gridkan mereka. Kita ambil satu punca air, kemudian kita ada sistem, dan disebabkan oleh sistem tu tak ada orang jaga, ya, tak ada water operators jaga, dan tak ada kutipan wang, akhirnya sistem tersebut lepas 3 tahun rosak. Sama ada generator ni rosak ke, sama ada solar panel ni rosak ke, whatever lah. Jadi kita sekarang ni nak fikir kaedah yang lebih sistematik. Kalaulah dia dapat air daripada anak air, kita buat proper dia punya apa ni, takungan air tersebut dan kita alirkan dan kita upah orang di situ untuk melaksanakannya. Dan ini sangat penting kepada sewerage system di pulau-pulau seperti Perhentian, Tioman, yang mana sistem kumbahan berpusat impossible boleh dilaksanakan.
Yes.
Ya, jadi kita kena gunakan off-grid system itulah.
Thank you, Datuk Sri. I hold the question to Encik Suhaimi first. I just want to capture what you said, and probably Prof. Chan or Dr. Asari can respond to this. Dr. Asari did mention just now regarding gig economy. So, like what I mean by gig economy is, in this Rancangan Malaysia, government actually have put up gig economy as one of the revenue or economic contribution, and about 26% of our Malaysians are actually involved in gig economy, and it has grown to 31% since 2017. US dengan UK 78-60%. So we are really on the growing trend. Why I want to bring this gig economy context, writing what Datuk Sri was mentioning, right? There is a need to sort of like bring in different ideas, different thoughts, young people, tech savvy, specialized, and flexible work approaches untuk bring these young people into the work sector where they have experience in other places as well. So that we can bring some robustness in thought processes, benda-benda yang kita nak. That means it's like the experienced people with the people with that energy to change, you know, because a lot of yang what Datuk Sri cakap ni, works yang social enterprise buat, not really huge corporate companies unless sebagai CSR. So we do need social enterprise participation to bring that social equity component as a head. So from Dr. Sari, is there anything that MWA is looking at, you know, to bring into your radar?
Okay, so since the question is posed to me, so I thought you're asking Mr. Suhaimi first just now. Okay, so coming back to this possibility of what I call that advancing into gig technology, I think we are already adopting it, some of our approaches, but at times we have a little bit problem with the so-called what I call that accountability, because there is a lot of too much of freedom being given, and it is less institutionalized. So I think we have to balance between going for just a gig economy, or we actually adopt the normal or conventional institutional type of setup, which is actually what we are doing most of the time here. But that shouldn't stop us from going for that, because of we have now a lot of multi-skills among our new generations. They have double degree, triple degree things of, so they might not like to go for one single job, one single thing to do. They might want to actually go for a lot of things. But I think we shouldn't be too demanding in terms of putting you must be like this. So that flexibility is still a good thing that we should explore. However, we have to put a little bit of caution that we in the industry also has to think on along the line of accountability and also what we call that responsibility. So at times we want to have a single responsibility, and it's quite difficult to have in this sort of arrangement for a single responsibility or something that is macro in nature. So I think the option is there, is still open. I think the industry also is very, very agile. They can always adopt to this sort of approaches, and I don't see any problem. I think if you look through carefully into what's happening now, that thing is already in place. We have that sort of arrangements. Probably it's not formalized yet, but that arrangement of what I call that free market and also giving freedom to what I call that service providers is already there. So it's a matter of balancing up between to how much extent we can allow for that gig economy to come into our industry. That's my answer.
Thank you, Dr. Asari. So probably like now, it'd be really great, being a sector leader or industry leader, right? If MWA come up with certain structure that takes into consideration what are the expertise and specialization needed. This is something we frequently can see in Ofwat. Kalau kita pergi Ofwat punya LinkedIn page, so many papers are being published and they are tapping into gig economy to bring them that relevant expertise rather than, having a huge overhead structure that normally corporate company.
Ms. Punita, I'd like to add on. I think this aspect has been actually started off with the academy science, actually working together with academy science in terms of identifying the potential market leader in specific, so that we have that freedom of getting their services once and it doesn't have to be put in one institution. That is happening already. I think we are actually enriching the data system for the gig economy.
Thank you, Dr. Asari. Encik Suhaimi, so earlier the question that I want to ask you was, you mentioned during your preamble sharing, you talked about multiple pollution incidents and now the initiatives that Ais Selangor have embarked on working with IWK on reclaim water initiatives, right? I was thinking, would Ais Selangor consider something further? Sebab Ais Selangor is a producer of water being used and getting dirty. Would Ais Selangor consider taking approach of extended producer responsibility? That means you actually take the responsibility of what people produce and discharge and try to drive, I do not know, should be the other way around, but let's say try to drive tariff setting mechanism where if you actually provide the supply, especially to industries or commercial sector, you supply to them X amount based on good behavior.
Interesting idea. Yeah, you have to elaborate more, Punita, on that one. Yes.
Because when I look at tariff setting mechanism right now, it's, in my opinion, okay, kita tak nampak lagi the whole document, but from a little bit of experience I had, dia based on the first layer efficiency gains yang operator build in, right? Now kita nak pergi lebih. Kalau kita dengar Datuk Seri punya pembentangan, he's talking about carbon footprint, he's talking about impact kepada environment. He even shared, but size of Putrajaya we are losing because of climate change. How I feel water sector can contribute is, if water sector can control the supply based on the recipients, number one, domestic, guna lebih, charge lebih, fine. What about industry and commercial sector? If they are, let's say, I look at commercial sector, right? Number one, restaurants, mereka discharge oil and grease rampantly. So your water rate is based on how they conduct their business. If your business have an impact to the water resources, which you're going to take and resupply back, wouldn't you want to charge something more? And tariff setting is designed based on that.
Okay, thank you for your question. I have to, this is the time, maybe I introduced the concept of merger of water and sewage industry as a possible step towards that. When the water operator controls the whole chain, from supplying water and then also receiving the discharge, treating the discharge, and allowing the discharge to be disposed in the rivers and the drains. Then if you look at the regional water authorities in UK, where they license discharges, for example, you can only discharge with a license into the waterways in the UK from the regional water authority, not separate authorities. The water company also licenses angling, fishing, and then people who discharge, they need to buy licenses to discharge. Then, yeah, you can penalize water polluters, quote unquote, by giving them high, I would say, license fees for discharging in the waterways. Then you are in control of the whole water infrastructure and mechanism. Then you can therefore use the funds from, let's say, licenses to polluting industries, and therefore and fund effectively the domestic users who are not the cause of the pollution, and provide better services in that way. So I'm I'm waiting as well as the government's direction on integration water and sewage services. But to touch on the tariff setting mechanism, the way it has been set now is that each licensee then prices its water in accordance to operating costs, covers, and then capex, and then some element of profit. And also there's an environmental charge. So that is another way you can put an element of penalty, I suppose, for polluters who then would have to pay higher tariff for polluting the environment. So the environmental charge is an avenue, I suppose, for government to impose that on certain industries and can be banded within the tariff setting mechanism. Punita.
Thank you, Josai. So I think there are a couple of questions here. We are also running out of time. I wish we have longer time. So Datuk Lutugi actually posted a remark here, which I think maybe Datuk Sri Zaini and Prof Chan can respond to. Water sector, there should be less politicking. Water tariff mechanism should be pursued rigorously by educating public having to pay. But I really think in this sense, right, I don't know, Dr. Chan, I don't think public tak nak bayar lebih. I think public is pretty ready to pay higher tariff. So it's maybe more of a political issue rather than a public readiness issue. Dr. Chan, if you can.
Okay, this is a very difficult and sensitive issue. In Malaysia, of course, I think when we talk about energy, we talk about petrol, we talk about other goods, other commodities. There is no, rejection or whatever hindering activities or law or whatever that the policy makers are afraid to increase the charges. I think it depends on whether it is appropriate or not. But when it comes to water, I don't know why there's a phobia. It's not just a phobia amongst most of the governments, state governments. Federal is okay. I think they have been asking for review of tariff, for a long time. This is a very strange issue. I can speak for Waterwatch Penang and also for many other NGOs. We will fight against tariff increase in most commodity, right? I mean, petrol and things like that. Oh, people cannot afford it, blah, blah, blah. But water, when it comes to water, because the tariff is so low, so low that it is actually highly subsidized by government, highly subsidized, or cross-subsidy in the case of Penang, it's cross-subsidy from the industry sector. So much so that I think it doesn't make sense. People are just wasting the water, people are just abusing the water. So we NGOs also, we want to see that water is restructured to such an extent that we don't waste it. So maybe the first 20 cubic meter does not change. We are just in case that, the poor people cannot afford it. So we protect the poor people. So the first 20 cubic meter, which is the basic unit for one family, stays the same. The rest, I think after that, if you use more than that, you can double, you can triple, I think that's the way to go now. Because you are wasting from 21,000 cubic meter, you are wasting already. So if you want to use more water, you pay lah. Because the first 20 cubic meter is already guaranteed for you. No increase. I think that is very fair for everyone.
Ms. Punita.
Yeah,
Ms. Punita.
Modus operandi lah, yeah.
Ms. Punita.
Yes, Dr.
I would like to invite Prof Chang to get all his colleague in the NGO to prepare a memorandum to the government to support the idea of government of implementing TSM. We go in one force so that this can be materialized. Because if MWA alone, probably we are seen as just one entity. If you can bring along many NGOs together, let's say 50 NGOs, and we write a memorandum, and then I think it could be fair. Maybe Datuk Sri Zaini comment on that?
I have a vested interest here. I'm the proposer, so I can. But I can say this: we are not saying the increase of tariff. We are saying adjustment of the tariff. Yeah. So if we give too much subsidy in the past, or we allow that to enjoy for so long, So we would like that to be corrected. And apa yang kita nak sebut ialah TSM adalah menentukan ketelusan dan keadilan kepada pengguna, begitu juga kepada operator air, kepada kontraktor air, kepada semualah yang dalam value chain itu. Kita kalau tidak tak adil lah. Hanya satu pihak saja yang untung, iaitu pengguna yang menggunakan air secara membazir. Itu yang paling untung sekali. Siapa yang paling untung sekali sekarang ni ialah pengguna yang menggunakan air secara tidak berhemat. Itu yang paling untung. Sebab pembaziran itu tidak ada penaltinya. Ya, mereka yang berhemat dia gunakan air sikit je. Ya, dia berhati-hati. Contohnya macam kita orang Islam ambil semayang. Kalau kita tengok orang ambil semayang macam mau mandi tau. Banyaknya air guna. Oh, dia kata syok dapat guna air banyak tu, dia kata satu nikmat yang dikurniakan oleh Tuhan. Padahal itu satu kesalahan. Jadi saya berharap perkara ni, dan bila syarikat air yang dimiliki oleh semua kerajaan negeri, kecuali di Johor yang 80% oleh Ranhil, secara tak langsung mereka akan boleh buat investment. Dia akan baiki pipe yang rosak, pipe yang dah 50 tahun, 40 tahun tu perlu diganti. Ya, dan nak ganti pipe ini bukan macam dulu. Sekarang ni nak kerat jalan raya di tengah Kuala Lumpur, itu kerja Cik Suhaimi. Ingat senang nak buat kerja tu. Nak dapat kebenaran pun susah daripada local authority, pihak berkuasa tempatan, apatah lagi nak suruh kontraktor, nak bayar kontraktor, nak siapkan dan jangka masa yang tertentu. So itu semua kos yang semakin tinggi. Semakin lama kita tunggu, semakin mahal. Apatah lagi kita nak buat grid system. Grid system tu macam ni. Saya nak ceritakan, susah nak cerita lah. Saya cerita macam ni. Ini adalah sungai Selangor Fasa 1, Sungai Selangor Fasa 2. Dia tak ada connected macam tu. Dia tak ada grid, dia tak bersambung. Ya, dan kalau bersambung tu tak nak buat satu kat sini, dia nak bersambung tengah tu, kat sini, dan banyak kosnya. Dan kalau lah macam kata satu loji tu ditutup, loji lain boleh bantu. Nak buat connecting tu kita panggil grid system. Dalam bidang penjanaan tenaga ataupun pembekalan tenaga, ada 2 grid dalam Semenanjung Malaysia ni. Anything happen, grid nombor 1 kat luar. Lepas tu ada grid dalam, kan ada grid kat luar. Dan ini perkara untuk menentukan bahawa di mana saja kita menghasilkan tenaga tersebut boleh dibekalkan. Contohnya sekarang ni, boleh tak kita bekalkan air daripada Negeri Sembilan ke Selangor? Boleh, Encik Suhaimi?
Only a northern part lah, I mean, very small.
Yes, assuming you tak ada air dari selatan, sebab grid tak ada.
Yeah.
So kalau ada grid, Selangor tak ada air, Negeri Sembilan hantar. Bukan hantar tank tau. Hantar pipe air tu kita buka. Kalau misalnya kata Negeri Sembilan tak ada air, Selangor hantar. Jadi barulah ada keserasian. Tak ada isu di mana loji air. Yang penting kalaulah Kedah tak cukup air, Pulau Pinang hantar. Pulau Pinang ada masalah air, Kedah hantar. Dan bukannya restricted kepada satu negeri. Itu yang sebutkan tadi. Kita ni cerita tentang sumber air. Apa yang kita nak bukan sumber air tau. Kita nak treated water. That matters. Kalaulah kita bergaduh tentang sumber air sampai bila pun kita tak settle. Let's talk about treated water. We connect, and then wherever you are, you have a chance to supply water. Jangan loy buruk lah. Nanti satu hari you punya pipe pecah, pipe yang lemah, you kata kami okey. Satu kali pecah, then you kena 3-4 hari orang tak ada air. Orang maki macam mana. Jadi nak tak nak kita mesti adakan jaringan air ni. Nak connecting ni siapa nak buat ni? Ya, connecting pipes ni siapa nak buat? Jadi let's talk about water grid rather than water resources. I think that's more palatable. Contohnya macam Negeri Sembilan dan Melaka. Kita ada satu sungai yang sama macam sungai Muda. Saya ada vested interest sebab isteri saya daripada sungai itu dan saya on the other side. Ya, jadi apa-apa berlaku, kawasan rumah saya di sini kena, dan kawasan isteri saya kena. Jadi bagi saya fikir, why not these two states, they sit down, build big, huge water treatment plant, and then whoever require the water, we supply. And then the ownership of the treatment plant is after the state where it is located. Katalah kebetulan treatment plant kita sebab they have to sacrifice land dan sebagainya, duduk di Melaka. Jadi Melaka owns 55% lah of the scheme. Yang lain semua kerajaan pusat bayar. Kerajaan persekutuan bayar. You punya WIA kerajaan persekutuan bayar. You punya taps kerajaan persekutuan bayar. Semua. Yang water treatment plant saja yang you bayar. And then you join together. Dan tak adalah dalam satu lembaran sungai ada dua loji yang kecil yang tidak efisien. It is better for us to have one big loji dan pada masa yang sama duit daripada sumber yang sama itu Pak Ap. So economy of scale it is much better and you think in different manner. Itu yang saya sebutkan tadi. Nak buat benda tu, Cik Suhaimi, dia kena pergi kepada emotion, kepada belief and motivation. Bukan dia cerita tentang ini hak saya, ini kuasa siapa dan sebagainya. Untuk jalankan benda tu, why not kita banner deny di kedua-dua tebing sungai.
Tebing sungai.
I just want to write up. I mean, what you're saying really makes sense, but still I think there's an issue related to tariff and the sensitivity, right? Would it be palatable for government to depoliticize by giving that power to the regulator? Let regulator make that decision without burdening politicians, because making decision increasing tariff for a politician is a burden.
Apa nak jawab ni?
Apa nak jawab?
We are all non-politician. So you tanya non-politician, semua kita nak politician. Tapi tanya politician, dia kata, ini bidang kuasa. Kuasa ni adalah bidang kuasa orang parti. Jadi dia kena bercakap. Jadi I think kita ialah, democracy require time to mature. We have to understand and incidences and problems make us aware and then more mature. I think let's find amicable way to do it. And sebab tu saya fikir you have to touch the heart of the people. Tadi design thinking tadi, you just remember this theory is developed by engineers. These are all MIT guys. Ini bukan dekat Harvard tau. Harvard tu banyak, of course, kalau kita tengok sebahagian besar dia punya basic degree, masters dia dalam bidang engineering. Tapi kalau you tengok dekat MIT ni, none of them yang belajar social science dan sebagainya. Dia jadi profesor dekat MIT, you have to address issues secara realistic. And akhirnya mereka balik kepada persoalan kemanusiaan. Design thinking tu bermula dengan motivation tau. And belief. Bukan bermula dengan idea dan sebagainya. And you just imagine this is the place where the concentration of Nobel Prize winner is the highest in the world. Dekat MIT tu ada lebih kurang dalam 100 orang. Dekat Harvard tu ada lebih kurang dalam 84 orang. 90 orang lah. 190 orang. Population. Di Malaysia ni seorang tak ada. Nak tunggu Profesor Chan tak bila-bila dia dapat Nobel Prize.
Tunggu bila-bila.
Datuk, I actually have something related to this design thinking bit, but before that, there's a question from Wan Ibrahim and Datuk Kade. Maybe I sum up that question is about the status of all the asset transfers to PAAP. What is happening with that? Because like what Datuk Kade put it, restructuring had been on for more than 10 years. So whether the business plans being submitted by water operators, sewerage operators, is it on track? Is it becoming more sustainable? And how that leasing, the transferring of assets, helping that out?
Siapa nak jawab ni? Pak.
Ada Pak sini. Datuk Sri jawab ni.
Saya boleh jawab, tapi Pak lah jawab. Ni Adam boleh tolong jawab.
Adam kena jawab.
Tak boleh Datuk Seri sebab dah keluar dari PAB.
Yelah, at least you tahu cerita macam mana.
Ya, Cik Suhaimi pun tahu Datuk Seri.
Semua orang nak lari jawab. Put it this way lah, PAAP is an instrument whereby we help state government to migrate. There's a lot of undertaking done by PAAP. It's not say that it's not financially profitable. Contohnya macam sekarang ni kan, 5 tahun ni tak bayar tu. You just imagine, you buat apa-apa 5 tahun kemudian baru you bayar. Plan dah siap, you dah dapat duit baru start bayar. Mana ada bank yang sebaik itu? You pinjam bank hari ni you pinjam duit bulan depan dah kena bayar lah. Ya, kalau kita pinjam buat rumah dan sebagainya. Ini macam mana dia boleh dapat 5 tahun tu? 60 months tu macam mana dia boleh dapat duit? untuk survive the business model. Sebab tu saya fikir kita pun, saya dalam lembaga PAP, 2 kali saya dalam lembaga PAP ni, kita bincang tentang business model, whether we can sustain or not. But our godfather is Ministry of Finance. Ya, apa-apa berlaku saja, tak apa. Kita bagi kelonggaran, kita bagi ni supaya water operators can survive. Contohnya macam sekarang ni kan. But some water operators tak boleh nak raise dia punya tarif, review dia punya tarif. Jadi dalam migration exercise tu, dia kena raise tarif macam Pahang contohnya. Jadi dia tak boleh nak buat, nak comply dengan syarat-syarat yang kita tetapkan. Kecuali tarif itu direview balik. Contoh. Dia banyak berkait-kait. I think PAP, you have to take it as a social economic institution, bukannya purely financial. Very generous as well.
So hopefully Datuk Sri, that PAP and even government agencies will start putting up procurement policies that build in the desire to achieve carbon footprint as one of the requirement when they actually, extending either a longer lease period or giving the terms.
Akan datang PAP kena buat, sebab PAP raise fund from financial market in order to get dia apa tu, financial proposal to be accepted by subscribers ataupun by investors. They have to comply with ESG. Kalau tidak, nanti tak, dan automatic kita boleh control melalui PAP. So I'm not worried about the future business, which we are having some difficulties. Syarikat air tak boleh nak gunakan kemudahan PAP sebab mereka pun menghadapi masalah dari segi keuangan sebabkan tarif itu berada pada tahap tersebut. Ya, tapi yang akan datang ni saya fikir instrumen kita mesti ada ESG lah dalam sistem kita.
Okay, thank you, Datuk Sri. Would like to check with the organizers.
I just want to answer one question on SPAN.
Yes,
okay. On the tariff mechanism, TSM of course is already nearly finalized. Probably since just now I mentioned about NGOs trying to support, we also want to put in some what we call that our concern, maybe that will just be fitting into what the government is spending. So of course what was mentioned about nak denda orang itu, all those are actually facts that was already considered, but we will put some other elements that's related to that.
Ni Puan Punita, saya diminta untuk tunjukkan satu slide.
Okay.
Slide ni sangat penting slide ini cadangan, sekadar cadangan, belum diterima pakai, tapi sebagai you can take this cadangan 80% through. Sebab ada orang dia kata bila nak tunjuk gambar ni, saya tunjuklah gambar ni. So this is estimated value for water projects under KASA and non KASA lah sampai rancangan Malaysia ke-19. Ini 15. But this is what we propose, and then every rolling plan tu kita kena fight. Jadi maknanya bukan final lah. But I would say that 70-80% will be in that direction. Kita tengok tu dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-11 hanya 19 bilion. Approve dalam Malaysia ke-12 ini lebih kurang 63 bilion. Type of project 771. Saya fikir yang 771 ni is almost done. Dan cuma kita quantum tu saja yang kita bincangkan sekarang. Untuk rancangan Malaysia ke-13 ni bukan 81. Most of climate related or climate resilient exercise will be done in rancangan Malaysia ke-13. Ya, sebab kita sekarang ni pun dah tahun 2022 lah, dah beberapa hari lagi nak habis 2021 ni. Ya, and then pada tahun 2015 pada RMKe-12 tu major thing need to be done. Say for example kita punya probably new dams to be reconstructed dan sebagainya. So that's the situation. Semakin dekat kita ke 2050, semakin banyak kita terpaksa melabur disebabkan oleh climate change punya efek tu akan lebih ketara lagi. Kalau kita tengok dari mana keuangan itu datang, alternative funding tu purely daripada alternative funding rancangan Malaysia ke-11 ke-12 ini kita anggarkan lebih kurang dalam 10% saja. Tapi moving forward nanti akan jadi 60-40. Ya, itu yang kita cadangkan. Ini peringkat cadangan yang dibuat oleh Academy Science. Dekat atas tu is by Academy Science Malaysia. Itu yang tadi siapa cadang expertise kita digunakan bagaimana, yang bantu menyediakan program ataupun dasar-dasar kerajaan sekarang ni internally through Academy Science Malaysia. So itu saja saya nak ni tutup cepat.
I think that is the most important slide.
Sebab tu I show at the last. Siapa yang tak keluar daripada ni je nampak.
Siapa keluar rugi ya.
Thank you, Datuk Sri. So before I hand over the session back to the organizer, there's one last question that if I don't ask, I'm not doing justice to 48% of the population in Malaysia, which are female. So I want to raise related to gender equity in participation in all sectors, where is one of the SDG 5. There's not bila Datuk share, saya boleh nampak masih lagi merah. That means we are not really that, maybe our achievement is not there yet. When I want to phrase my question, I really want to, I want to quote this article because it's related to design thinking. Because design thinking is not just, it's motivation plus psychology, right?
Yeah.
Done by Journal of Consumer Research. In a series of 7 studies, they found that people perceive consumers who behave in eco-friendly ways are more feminine, and the consumers who perceive, or those who perceive themselves as more feminine. So what's more, men may avoid green behavior in order to protect their masculinity. Ini saya tak cakap. This is Journal of Consumer Research, and I checked their ranking. It's pretty high in the order. Prior research indicates women do tend to do more environment responsibilities compared to male, and typical gender gap is attributed to inherent personalities between two genders. Okay, of course, one thing, satu benda yang kita tahu adalah it actually varies according to culture and the settings of respective communities and countries. I would like to know whether any part in CASA are looking at that kind of engagement to do research Malaysia specific, and whether kaedah engagement yang digunakan sekarang, which is a lot of engagements happening, is it tapping the right group to see changes on the ground?
Tanya siapa ni?
Siapa Datuk Sri? Jangan Datuk Asari, Encik Zuhairi.
Ya, saya fikir kita memberikan penekanan kepada bukan saja kualiti tetapi juga tentang persoalan gender. Contohnya macam hari ini ya. Saya bertanya siapa yang seorang lagi boleh perempuan? Untuk kita at least balance lah 40% women among the panelists. Itu yang tiba-tiba kita ada Ruby introducing us instead of orang lain lah. Jadi nak meramaikan sepatutnya 50-50. Tapi saya pun tak ada kuasa untuk ini sebab majlis ni majlis MWA. Jadi MWA menjemput saya syaratkan mesti ada sekurang-kurangnya seorang perempuan. Tapi yang lain function-function saya semua 50-50 sekarang ni. Kalau webinar saya yang kami kendalikan lah, yang kami tak kendali kadang dia susah dia punya requirement tu. Ada sekali tu saya ada seorang perempuan daripada 5 orang. Jadi saya heavily criticized. Sebab saya pernah tanda tangani satu declaration tentang gender ni, di mana kalaulah ada function di mana semua lelaki, saya takkan hadir. Jadi if you need me, you have to have at least 20% ataupun 40% kurang-kurangnya wanita.
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Punita, let me answer that question because I just want to say that actually we concur, okay, number one, with Datuk Sri, and actually we were discussing about this all the way through, but having in what I call it balanced representation about gender. So one of our speakers is supposed to be here, the lady is supposed to be, but probably she can make it. I've given the name, Dr. Salma, correct? Yeah. So actually, because that is also part of SDG. I think we are what I call that kita sensitive about that, and of course, I would say one more thing that is not said before. Actually, success of some of our events, our programs, or whatever we do is actually because there are enough representation from the women. That is my experience working in the government and also in the private sector. So don't worry about that. It may not be spoken out, but it's being practiced.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Asari. I'm actually talking also in an angle of reaching out, because contohnya di Vietnam, there was a initiative that has been put in place to roll out sanitation in villages and agricultural area, tapi dia tak successful. And what they found out is decision when come to water and sanitation in the household level are made by women, while the money comes from the man. So that is an important reason why design thinking, behavioral insights approaches kita kena tengok to see how what transpires at every single aspect to see whether the changes yang kita cuba macam apa, I mean, I'm actually referring more to cultural climate culture yang Datuk Sri was talking about in the morning, right? Because we want to see the change, the motivations or the focus should be on the right group. And I don't think a lot of studies has been done in Malaysia context to see how to replicate these changes and so that we can actually enforce it. So with that, I think we...
Boleh tak saya buat a little clarification? Yes. Data yang saya tunjukkan tadi itu adalah data yang belum di-approve oleh mana-mana agensi kecuali KASA lah ya. KASA has submitted that, and then this is long term, kita tak buat perancangan long term macam ni lah. Cuma apabila satu kajian transformasi sektor air itu dibuat, dan ini keperluan-keperluannya, khususnya to make Malaysia more resilient from water infrastructure point of view, to adapt, it is part of adaptation for climate change. Ya, jadi itu saya kata tadi, that is the direction. Jadi direction itu dipersetujui, cuma quantum tu tak dipersetujui. Jangan kata saya tak, ataupun kami di KASA tak berfikiran besar, kita berfikir sangat besar. 400 billion is not an easy talk. Yeah.
Thank you, Datuk Sri. Before we wrap up, maybe we just go around the table for the panelists, starting with Encik Suhaimi.
I've got nothing else to add. Just on the gender diversity, we at ICE Selangor takes cognizance that the contribution of women in our organization is being monitored and being promoted. Is in our sustainability report. We do believe they bring additional value. Taking the feminine perspective is right. They are the ones are pushing towards sustainability. They're the ones pushing towards more awareness towards climate change. So I echo what Haji Asari mentioned, that we do value the women workforce within our organization.
Thank you, Encik Suhaimi. Professor Chan?
Okay, just one thing that I need to ask Datuk Sri.
Ayo, banyak asal dia. Dah habis dah.
No, because Mr. Encik Suhaimi pun ada concern dengan dia, because it's about water treatment plant. I think this issue is about the residue from the water treatment plant, and it's all going into the river and polluting our river. So it's part of the pollution of our river system. So I think the water treatment, the water service provider does not have the capability to treat it. It needs a national solution. They don't have the resources to do it. I've been talking to many water service providers, and they cannot solve it themselves. Datuk Sri, it needs a national solution, please.
Ya. Sekarang ni, okay, I give you what are the steps required and what have been taken. Nombor satu, delisting from schedule waste. The schedule of schedule waste, delisting, keluar daripada peraturan, bukan akta ya, peraturan. So in order to delist, seseorang kena ambil tanggungjawab itu. Yang ambil kena tanggungjawab itu ialah SPAN, Suruhanjaya melalui wasiat. Okey, dalam wasiat dia ada dua tak didefinisikan. Satu ialah residu air, yang kedua ialah reclaim water. Sebab saya beritahu tadi, bila saya tunjuk gambar asal tadi, masa kita buat itu benda tu tak terfikir lagi. Bila kita nak masukkan dalam tanggungjawab SPAN, dia kena tukar dulu akta induk. Bukan peraturan tau, akta induk. Sebab definition kepada residu air dan air pulih guna itu adalah dalam akta induk. Akta induk tu telah diluluskan di peringkat kita lah untuk dibantangkan di Parlimen. Jadi itu saya sebutkan tadi, dua akta tu saya akan berbincang dengan Peguam Negara pada hari Jumaat depan ni supaya disegerakan. Kalau tidak nanti stuck, kita tak boleh buat banyak kerja. Ya, apa-apa hal berlaku nanti ada loopholes. Selepas daripada itu, okey, segalanya adalah tanggungjawab SPAN. SPAN boleh manage dan caranya ialah SPAN akan license lah syarikat-syarikat yang akan ambil residu air. Kita tak panggil slush, kita panggil residu air. Kalau kita panggil slush, dia masih berada dalam
SW204.
dalam
SW204.
akas. Ya, SW. Kita panggil residu air. Istilah tu pun kita tukar. So what we are doing now, we try to differentiate between residue and sludge. Jadi itu terkeluar daripada Akta Kualiti Alam Sekeliling masuk kepada wasiat. Tapi wasiat sendiri kena ada istilah itu disebutkan. Ini semua we are subscribed to lawyers and also lawyers said so we have to listen to them lah. Tidak kita tak boleh.
Akan diselesaikan lah, Datuk Seri ya. Okay.
Dalam proses, nombor 1 telah selesai, nombor 2 telah selesai, nombor 3 bentang di parlimen. Itu sebab kita ni 6 bulan tak bentang di parlimen, tak bersidang di parlimen dah tak. Jangan kacau-kacau lah, bagi parlimen tu settle banyak masalah kita. And then we have easier way to move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Prof. Chan. Dr. Sari, you have any last words before we hand over?
Ini dah berapa jam dah ni?
Yes.
2 jam setengah.
And Dr. Sari, you are on mute.
So thank you, Punita. So I think this has going to be coming at the end. So terima kasih banyaklah kepada Datuk Seri, the panelists, Engineer Mr. Suhaimi and Dr. Chan for participating. I think I will put my final remark in the closing speech.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we come to an end to our program 30 minutes later. But it's a valuable conversation with all the water leaders in the country. And I would like to thank MWA for organizing this particular webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you goes to Puan Punita for moderating the session, Datuk Sri Zaini Ujang, panel members and all who have participated in the webinar today. If you have any additional questions, please send them to MWA and we will forward them to respective parties for their response. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end. Allow me to call the MWA President, Dr. Engineer Technologist Haji Muhammad Asari Daud to give the closing remarks. Please welcome Dr. Asari.
Terima kasih Ruby. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya rasa perbincangan yang telah kita lalui was a very interesting. A lot. Kalau 2 jam, 3 jam lagi pun saya ingat tak habis. Memang very interesting. Especially kita boleh melihat progres yang berlaku dalam industri ini. Jadi I think with Datuk Seri around, kita harap benda-benda yang selama ini menjadi orang kata bebanan, kekangan dan halangan kepada kita itu akan dapat diatasi. We pray for his health so that boleh terus membantu industri ini untuk terus maju dan terkeluar daripada apa yang kita berada sekarang ni. Kepada panelis, Cik Suhaimi, Dr. Chan and also moderator kita, Punita, saya ucap terima kasih banyak-banyak. Dan saya rasa perbincangan kita ini tidak akan berhenti di sini. Saya tadi sebut dekat Dr. Chang, we will put up a memorandum and try to facilitate, because I think Datuk Sri Zaini has mentioned to me time and again, Asari, please go and get your politician, and you kenal dekat you punya kawasan you to help, not to politicize. So it actually a lot of work to be done. I think with NGOs that is connected to Dr. Chang, I think we can get to all the politicians that is yang suka bercakap tentang air ni. I think so, Dr. Chan.
Yeah.
That is the task and this is the outcome. Yes. Orang kata faedah daripada mengadakan webinar ni, dan dengan tu kita harap semua industri operator kita, baik yang besar seperti Air Selangor ataupun yang kecil seperti Perlis, akan dapat kebaikan daripada perbincangan kita dan juga perancangan-perancangan kerajaan. Jadi saya ucap terima kasih kepada semua yang hadir, partisipan kita yang itu daripada pukul 3 tadi. Has been very long day. I'm sorry about the orang kata panjang ni, but it could be longer if nobody stop us. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend ahead. I mean, it's going to be ending today. Today is last weekend, so it's going to be weekday tomorrow. So jumpa lagi insyaAllah. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih terus.
Thank you everybody.
Okay, thank you. Members and participants, just a short one. Okay, thank you for your time shared today with us for 2.5 hours. For your information, MWA will be organizing a next webinar on Water Strategy Forum Digitization for NRW. This is in collaboration with Oracle Utilities, one of MWA institutional members. The date will be on 28 October. More information will be posted in the WhatsApp group and also in the website of MWA. Okay, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, let us take some photos, group photos among the panel speakers and moderator. And to all the participants, thank you all. See you next time. Assalamualaikum. Joe
Okay,
Cairo, can
ready?
we take? Yeah.
Okay, ready? Take 1, 2, 3. Okay. Another one. Sorry, another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you sekali lagi.
Thank you Dato' Sri. Thank you so
Terima
much.
kasih semua Dato' Sri.
Thank you very much.
Suami, thank you.
Okay, Tuan
Thank you,
Haji.
Cik
Berapa
Suami.
ribu orang
Stay safe.
Suami, thank you Cik Suami. Thank you so much.
Berapa ribu orang datang?
Thank you.
Beribu orang.
Dia kena tengok dekat ni.
Tengoklah
Dekat-
dekat tu.
Dekat
Dah
Facebook.
keluar dah ni, hari dah keluar.
Dah dekat Facebook. Dekat Facebook, dekat apa ni?
Facebook
Streaming.
tadi separuh jalan ada 38.
Oh,
I think
Streaming.
more after that lah.
Tadi last maksimum untuk YouTube lebih kurang dalam 50 orang lah. Total untuk participant hari ni dekat dalam Zoom lebih kurang dalam 80 orang.
Tunggu dulu. Sekejap lagi ramai lah tu.
But registered no 197.
It is still live on YouTube. It hasn't ended yet.
Ya.
Jadi